In the Empire of Rosanti, the year 712, according to the imperial calendar, the sacred sword, dormant for almost 600 years, suddenly awakened. When the knights saw this, they were surprised and screamed, saying that they should call the high priesthood quickly, and at that moment, they thought that God had heard them. The sword says that it chooses this lady as its mistress, and the girl says that it is a great honor for her to be chosen. He says that refusal is not accepted and asks if she knows. This was the first meeting of Adelia Esther, the first female knight in the history of the continent, and also the only surviving descendant of the fallen duchy and the sacred sword of Rebirth. It's been 7 years since she retired, but her achievements are still on people's lips. The man says that she was even able to restore the fallen Esther family, and also put an end to the great battle of Gaia that had been going on for centuries. He believes that this girl is like a gift from heaven, and such miracles will never happen again. The main character says that it is clear to her. The surprised man asks what kind of tone this is, as if it is not about her. She says that it is a little embarrassing for her to hear such things from teacher Felson. The girl suggests that it would be better to talk about the present, and then she says that they say that she has less than 6 months left. The man heard this and was surprised that he was tired from the chair. Barak reminds her that he always told her to think about her health, and then asks what is the point of advocacy and power if her health is not good. After all, he asked her to use the aura less often, because her body can't handle it. Philo, crying out, asks if she is not at all embarrassed that her life will end this way. He tells her to just say so, and he will go around the world to find a solutions. Adelia turns to the boys and says that a hero must remain a hero until the very end. The girl turns to the sacred sword Regatu and says that he did a good job. Suddenly, the main character looked forward, and she does not understand where she is. At this time, she realized that her legs are so light, and she wondered if she died. The young lady says that not even a day has passed, and she has already gone to meet the Almighty. When the main character opened her eyes, she saw that she was lying on the bed, and when she looked at the balcony, she saw a white dove on it. The girl looked at herself in the mirror and did not understand what it was, because she did not recognize herself at all, since she had turned from a young lady into a little girl. The maid turns to Mrs. Adelia and reports that she heard a loud sound from her room and hurried to make sure everything was okay. The main character asks Sarah what year it is according to the imperial calendar. She replies that it is 699. Then she asks why she asks. The girl asks how old she is, and the maid replies that she is 9. The little lady asks in surprise if her father and her brother are alive. Sarah explains that a letter from the Duke just arrived yesterday, and therefore believes that there should be no problems, and young Master Derek is still in the ranks of the Imperial Knights. The maid asks if she had a nightmare. Then she says it's not a good time because she needs to prepare for the Academy entrance ceremony. At this time, the main character thought about the fact that she had a luxurious room in the estate where she lived as a child, and Sarah, whose face was erased from memory after the fall of their house, and she was a 9-year-old young and naive Adelia. The girl thought that she had either gone completely crazy with sleeping or had actually returned to the past. The sweet lady says that she will not go to the academy and offers the maids to sort out her things. And at that time, she thought that she does not want to go through the difficulties of becoming a knight anymore. Adele objects and says that it will be a hassle to dismantle them, and then suggests simply burning everything. Hearing this, the maid, surprised, asks what she is talking about. Sarah reminds the lady that only yesterday she was happy that she successfully entered the knighthood, like young Master Derek. The little girl asks if this is true and says that today is not yesterday, and she does not want to be a knight anymore. Adele says that from now on, she's only going to have fun completely and utterly. Esther's house is still there, and her father and brother are alive to carry it. The main character thought that she was so glad that she would no longer have to bear the same burden alone that she had in her past life. However, the young lady understood that if she did not become a knight, she would not have to return to the horrors of war and become the little dog of Emperor Axidum, desperately wanting to seem like a hero to everyone. The girl understands that this is her chance to rest, which she deserves, and compensation for the hopeless and tiresome life of a hero spent in the war. She believes that this is her bet, and therefore decides to just sleep it off because she will think after waking up. The Duke and the young lord died in battle against the Rocher alliance, and the royal knight Frey returned with a great victory against the alliance. They cried out, "Long live the Emperor Axidiums." The man tells his friend if he heard that the head of the Esther family and his heir died. He reminds that he said that the favors would become heroes again, and he was not wrong. Poor young Mrs. Esther was left all alone. She watched as the knights cried out in admiration of the emperor. At this time, the doctor tells the maid that he gave her an antipyretic, and therefore the temperature will soon go away, and the young lady will be healthy again. Sarah screaming asks how soon it is, and then claims that she is already in pain, and therefore suggests doing something. The doctor calms the maid down. Young Mr. Derrick reports that no one wrote to him that Adelia was ill. Sarah was surprised when she saw the gentleman, and then explained that the young lady had simply been saying strange things in the morning, and then she had been overcome by a fever. He asked if she had said that she would not go to the academy. Derrick turns to his sister and says that her brother is here, and therefore suggests that she open her eyes. He says that if the temperature goes down, he will buy her all the pudding from 3rd Street and even drop by Lemular for plum ice cream. At this time, the main character thought about what this aura was. The man turns to his lordship and asks what he will do. Hero of the War of Empires, Rosiante. Theos. Esther reports that she said she doesn't want to go to the academy. The guy says that, as far as he knows, many nobles and citizens of the empire are keeping a close eye on Esther's house. There was a lot of talk when she said that she intended to take the knight's exams, even though she was a woman, and he thinks that if the girl gives up now, the rumors will only increase. The gentleman turns to Warren and says that he will end the war in a week and return. Hearing this, the guy asks in surprise why he is dragging it out for 6 months. The gentleman says that objections are not accepted. The brother turns to his sister and asks if she can hear him. He touches her head and says that the fever has gone down. The little lady was happy when she saw the guy. He says that her brother is worried about her. Adele asks in surprise how he got here so quickly. But suddenly, her head hurts and she screams. He asks if she's okay. The girl explains that she still feels pain, but she is indeed alive. At this time, the main character remembered that her brother told her that he would soon return, although this is a war, but he believes that there is no threat. And he also suggested that she eat well and not skip breakfast. The young lady pounced on her brother and hugged him tightly. He asks the maid in surprise if they can call Reynold again. The main character thought that this time she would save her dad and brother and would not allow her family to go through the same sorrows again. The sister tells the guy that she is so glad that he is back, and at that time she thought that it is enough that he is here. Adelia remembers that he was always a good brother, but not so clingy. After all, the guy made sure every morning that his sister tried well and even fed her with a spoon when necessary. Derrick, watching his sister, thought that she had become so sweet after her illness and simply considered her adorable. The young gentleman reports that Dad wrote that he arrived earlier than expected. The girl thought that it would take a long time to get to the very south of Chartos, and she knows that the war will drag on anyway. Adelia asks her brother if he was the one who said it would take a long time. He replies that he must have been the one who was sympathizing with her because she didn't want to go to the academy. After all, her father is trying his best to finish there and return as soon as possible, which is why he is so worried about her. Hearing this, the young lady thought that the war was more important to her father than her birthday, and she understands that she is no longer a silly little girl to believe in this sweet lie. Derrick asks, "How about a little sparring like usual?" She says she ate too much and doesn't feel like moving. The brother claims that she herself always demanded sparring and asks if, now she says that she is lazy because she has overeaten. She answers that she does not feel like it and asks if it is clear to him, and then claims that she is 9 years old and she can eat. The young gentleman says that he will then go and run away to the knights. The little girl suggests that he return quickly. He agrees with her and promises to return quickly. When Adelia went out onto the balcony and looked at her garden, she thought that this was a blessing. She understands that the peaceful days will end as soon as she turns 12. Within 2 years, the current Emperor Kendrick will die, and following his will, the throne will be taken not by the Crown Prince Karzes, but by Duke Axidum. The main character understands that then there will be a war with Rocher, in which the Esters will fall, having decided at once both the head of the family and his heir. And she understands that even if she herself goes to war instead of them, it is suicide without an aura and a holy sword. The lady thought that it would be great if her father could return earlier. Adelia saw a carriage driving to their yard. She wondered who could be there and whether her father could return so early. When the carriage drove closer, the girl realized that it was a carriage from the Rose Hill house, and a girl named Caroline was sitting there. The guest drinks tea and says that it has a wonderful aroma. Caroline Rose Hill, Derek's fiancée, the eldest daughter of the Marchioness of Rose Hill. Adelia tells the bride that she knew she would like the flower tea. Then she tells her that the cookies are from her favorite shop, Larton's. And she didn't serve the pudding because she wasn't sure she liked them, and asks how she feels about them. Caroline says that she apologizes for the illegal visit, and then says that if she had known that Derek had already left, she would have turned around at the gate. The main character says that she does not blame her for anything. Hearing this, Caroline asks, in surprise, what she is talking about, since she always knew that she hates her. The girl remembered the conversation she had overheard about Caroline suggesting that her brother think carefully because marrying the Marquis's daughter was much more promising than marrying any other noble lady. After all, she would receive the status of a duchess, and Esther's house would receive exclusive rights to the northern mines. Adelia understood that Caroline just wanted the position of duchess, and she did not love her brother. And she remembers how she tortured her for this. And she learned about her true feelings only after Derek died. Caroline turns to Derek's sister, who died, and says that she is personally investigating this case, and suggests that she not give up but wait a little longer. After all, back then, she believed that the death of these people could not have been so senseless. The bride apologized to the little girl, and says that it is hard for her, because she no longer has power. The Rose Hills were banished from the empire, branded as accomplices of the House of Esther, who were accused of treason. Remembering all this, the main character thought that she should apologize. Carolina asks the girl why she is looking at her like that. Adelia says that the bride is simply very beautiful. Hearing this, she asks why she is so sudden, and then wonders if this is a new way to get rid of her. The girl takes her hands and says that she really honestly likes her blonde curls, and also her snow-white skin emphasized by the scarlet dress and her sky-blue eyes, including. The young lady says that she was just jealous that Caroline always plays only with her brother, but she was too immature, and no matter how much she liked her, she shouldn't have done that. And then she says that she's sorry and asks if she'll accept her apology. Surprised, Carolina says that in that case she will keep an eye on her. In the evening, a happy girl lies down on her bed and thinks about how fun it was today during the day. Adelia understands that Caroline may not remember this, but at least she shouldn't interfere with her and her brother again, because she believes that the fate of her father and brother also determines the fate of the Rose Hill family, and she understands that for now she has neither the strength nor the connection and doesn't even know where to start. The little girl asks the maid who is her closest friend. Now Sarah thinks that there are none, and at that moment she thinks that no noble lady would play with a lady waving a sword. The main character says that since she is no longer going to the academy, she would like to make friends. Hearing this, the maid says that it will be wonderful. The young lady says she wants to go to tea and asks if there is at least one invitation for her. At this point, she thinks that this is too much and apologizes. His sister's brother came into the room, and when she saw him, she asked if he had finished his work. He replied that he had already done most of it, but it was more important that their father had returned. Having heard this, the girl was surprised, and then, together with her brother, went to her father's office. The father tells them to sit down, and the brother suggests that the sister sit on the sofa. At this time, the main character looked at her father and thought that he looked exactly the same as when he last went to war. And she understands that she cannot greet him indifferently because she has missed him for too long, and she has so many questions. Adelia doesn't understand why such a strong man suddenly died so senselessly. She wonders how he could bring accusations of treason on them and leave her alone, and wonders what happened on the battlefield that day. The girl realizes that she has so many questions, but she is the only one who remembers the events of her past unhappy life. She thinks that she can't ask anyone here, and there is no one to answer her. The daughter tells her father that she is really glad that he returned safe and sound. The head of the family asks if she wants to withdraw her application to the academy. The girl replies that it is her decision. Her father claims that it is a great honor to be admitted to the Vientiola Academy. She replies that she knows the Imperial Academy of Knights of Vientiola, despite its long history of enrolling a 9-year-old girl among the applicants, was the first time, and the Emperor personally gave his consent after much deliberation. Father says that this was a one-off admission considered on a personal basis, and to cancel it, she will have to obtain the consent of His Majesty personally. The young lady replies that she is ready for this. Adelia tells her father that he wanted to return so quickly that he even ended the war in the shortest possible time. And then she claims that her decision will not change, and she will not go to the academy. The head of the family reports that the reason he returned so quickly and asks his daughter if she is better now. She assures that everything is fine now. The father says that he has prepared a carriage and therefore suggests not to delay, but to go to the palace. Hearing this, the girl was surprised, because she did not even imagine that it would be so simple. The head of the family asks if she doesn't mind, and then says that it's quite chilly early in the morning, and therefore suggests that she dress nicely and go down, because this will be her first meeting with the emperor. The girl thought that in her past life, she only learned about his death while she was studying at the academy. Her brother says that they will arrive by dawn, and so she can sleep for now. At this time, the main character thought that her father and she are a daughter who is not particularly good at expressing feelings, and she missed him so much, but believes that she is the only one experiencing these feelings. Adelia asks her father if he has already spoken to His Majesty. He explains that he only informed him that he approves of her decision, and therefore she will have to go there herself and explain everything to him. The fool assures her that she can handle it. The head of the family reports that it was decided that for some time he will not go on campaigns and will remain in the mansion, and therefore his son can return to the knightly order. Derek asks in surprise if another war is not already on the doorstep, and also asks if His Majesty objects. The father says that he does not look particularly happy about this. The son asks his father if he threatened His Majesty. Well, when he realized that his father was silent, he asks screaming if he really did not threaten the emperor. And then he says that even if they are close friends, this is not appropriate. The father replies that nothing like that. And the son asks again if it's true. When the main character came to the emperor, he said that she was the young star of the Esther family about whom he had heard so much. The main character says that she is Adelia, daughter of the House of Esther, welcomes the son of the Empire of Rogenet. The emperor invites the girl to stand up, and when she raised her head, she realized that this man is Emperor Kendrick. The girl thought that she and the crown prince were very similar, and it was not surprising. He reminded her of that guy when they were still knights. The emperor asks the young lady what she is thinking about so much. She explains that she is simply nervous, because it is her first time meeting His Majesty. The emperor tells her not to be nervous, as he did not call her to discuss something grandiose. Then he asks that her decision to withdraw her application to the academy has not changed. Adelia replies that it hasn't changed. He asks if she wants to give up the honor of being the youngest applicant and a girl knight to boot, and wonders if he understands this correctly. The emperor asks whether, despite this access to private and training grounds, and the services of the royal chef, a scholarship, free travel without any papers, no exams, and permission not to attend classes that are not interesting to her. She answers that it is absolutely true. The emperor says that this will be a blow to the academy's reputation, and then he says that he will have one condition, because he does not offer such deals to just anyone. His Majesty asks the girl how she feels about teaching the crown prince fencing. Then he says she can go. The emperor's assistant asks His Majesty why he suggested such a thing. He replies that he simply wanted to take some of her arrogance down a notch, since she already considers herself a knight at such a young age. The emperor says that who would have known that she would take it so seriously, and he wishes the punishment cell was at least half as serious. Derek asks his sister if she was scared, and what happened there. The girl replies that she was not scared at all, and says that she promised to fulfill the emperor's wishes in exchange for stopping her father for 2 years. The emperor then said that Theos was glad to hear this, and he would be glad to fulfill it. But still they had their own agreements with him, and therefore it would be difficult. The girl asks, "What about such an agreement then?" The brother asks in surprise if she will teach the crown prince fencing. The father asks in surprise if she has agreed. The daughter replies that she has agreed. Adelia tells her father that she wants to ask a question about what His Majesty told her, and then asks what agreement he has with him. The Pope says that they have an agreement regarding his resignation as collateral, and in exchange he must make the crown prince a worthy contender for the throne, and then explains that all he has to do is prevent Axidom from becoming emperor in place of Carses. The girl realizes that in her past life, after graduating from the academy, she attracted the attention of the Prince of Carses and served as his bodyguard. But after Axidom inherited the throne, her opposition changed. As the owner of the Holy Sword, she was obliged to leave the Carses to protect Axidom, although she and the prince remained on friendly terms. The main character thought that it seemed to her that the emperor was on the side of Carses and wanted to help his father with his resignation. However, she did not know how exactly Axidom became emperor and what he did for this, and she did not understand whether she could tip the scales in favor of a specific candidate. Adelia thought that, besides, she only knows how to swing a sword, and she has never had to solve such complicated cases. Father says that I need to puzzle over this because her schedule has changed. Carses entered the room. The father and brother greeted the crown prince. The young lady realized that the prince was now about 12 years old, and she thought that at that age, people usually don't walk around with such faces. The main character remembered that in the past, he mentioned that Axidom constantly tormented him in childhood, but she then thought it was a joke, and she wondered if he really endured everything and did not say a word to anyone. Barian turns to the priest. Hearing this, he tells the boy to mind his manners because the Duke is visiting them today. Barian cries out in surprise and says that the sacred sword is moving. The crown prince tells Lord Esther that he did not expect him to return so quickly, and then asks who the stranger standing next to him is. The girl says that she is Adelia Esther and greets His Highness the Crown Prince. And at that time, she thought that they had not seen each other for a long time, and she asks to wait for him a little, because they will remove Axidom and return the throne to him. His Highness asks the girl if she has left the audience with His Majesty. She replies that she has. The Crown Prince turns to Derek and says that he heard rumors that he left the knightly order because of his sister. Hearing this, the father thought that he was very straightforward. The brother apologizes and says that it was like that, but now the sister is better. His Highness says that it is time for him to return. Then brother explains that he meant that he should stay a little longer. Adelia turns to the Crown Prince and says that she herself told her brother to return to work from tomorrow, since she believes that the deputy commander of the knights should not be absent for so long. My brother was surprised to hear this, but the girl insists that she is already fully recovered. Derek claims that he has already told the commander that he will return in a week. The Crown Prince suggests that he do as he sees fit, since he knows that he is not one to shirk. His Highness says that he must see his father, and so he leaves. The main character wishes him luck. Kartzer turns to his servant and says that he needs all the information about the young star of the House of Esther. The young lady, sitting in the carriage, heard that the next thing on their schedule was the sacred temple. When the main character saw the sacred temple, she realized that this building is truly magnificent because it contains the Holy Sword and other relics. And she also knows that their family regularly donates money to the temple, and that is why they have a special trip today. Adelia understands that the sacred sword is a problem, but thinks that everything should be fine, considering that Rigart is still dormant, and she does not understand what could go wrong. The priest showed them the room where the sacred sword rests. He says that if you look there, you will see it. But suddenly, the sword lit up, and the main character thought that something might happen after all. The priest screams and says that the sacred sword has awakened and is floating in the air. At this time, Adelia does not understand why he woke up so early and why he immediately recognized her, and she wonders why the events are so different from her past life. The main character thinks she needs to run, and then she turns around to leave. Sword asks his sister where she is going, and then asks her not to leave him. He says that she has shrunk, but she is definitely his sister, and only she can hear his voice. Adelia thought about him keeping quiet because she thinks he shouldn't recognize her. Sword says that she is definitely a sister because of her familiar voice and rude manner. The sword says that he is coming to her and suggests that she catch him. The girl raised her head and screaming thinks that he is a bastard. But suddenly the father grabbed the sword over his daughter's head, and then he turns to the priest and says that it seems they like to test the patience of Esther's family. Hearing this, the priest asks the Duke in surprise how he can say such a thing, and then explains that they did not expect such a thing to happen. The Duke claims that the sword that has been kept in their temple for centuries suddenly attacks his child, and then asks what it is if not an assassination attempt. The priest screams and claims that the assassination attempt is impossible because it is still a holy sword, and he says that a holy sword is still a sword. Mr. Esther says he will demand an explanation for what happened. Then he tells his children that they are leaving. The priest tells the archbishop to finish his pilgrimage and sort this out, as he thinks it's a disaster. Then he tells his subjects to clean up the sanctuary. Suddenly, the priest saw that the sword was missing. He screamed and ordered that the sacred sword be found. In the evening, the brother puts his sister to bed and asks if she is in pain anywhere. He also asks if he should call a doctor. The little lady says that she is in pain and then asks what is wrong with Dad. The brother says that he hurried to his office, grumbling that he has a lot of work. Derek suggests Adele to have a good rest. When the brother left, the main character suddenly saw a medallion in her hands. He turns to his sister and says that he knew that she had not forgotten him, and then explains that, as soon as he came to his senses, he immediately felt that the flow of time had turned back. Regat! He asks her if she can imagine how bored he was in that snow-white prison all this time, and then he says that he wanted to run away with her, no matter what it took, and that's why he did it. The sword says that it is the magnificent sacred sword, Rigart Bentieri Holis. Adelia asks how long he remembers. The sword says that he chose her, and together they performed great deeds on the battlefield. Then he says that he will never forget the victory parade, where people gathered just to gawk at them. Rigaud asks if she remembers those looks full of recognition and gratitude. He says that even children ran out to shower them with flowers. The main character reports that she died. The sword says that he knows it. The girl explains that she thought she would die on the battlefield left alone. Sword asks in surprise if she really remembers everything. He asks if she really missed his sister, and wonders if she was going to leave him there. Adelia took the sword in her hands, and then agrees with him, and suggests trying in this life too. The girl says that he absolutely must not attract attention, and must not show his aura. He says that heroes are always in the spotlight. The main character objects and says that in this life, she will not be a hero, just like Axidam's little dog. The sword asks if she is talking about that seaweed, and if it is the one because of which her sister suffered. Adelia explains that this is why she didn't plan to stick her neck out in this life, and then asks if he will help her. Rigat replies that of course he understands, and will be a quiet, inconspicuous sword. Rigat says that Akadum will recognize her aura as soon as he sees it. Hearing this, the girl asks in surprise if her body already has an aura. The father asks his son how his daughter is. He explains that he put her to bed, and at that time, he thought that maybe that time she was embarrassed and instinctively released her aura. The father thought that it would be difficult if one of the priests noticed, and he had no choice, except to draw their attention to himself, and he hoped that he did it successfully. The head of the family says that they will discuss the rest when the daughter wakes up. Derek announces that he is going to be away for a while. His father asks where he is going at such an hour. The son explains that on the 3rd Street in the Demi-North, they sell puddings that Adelia loves. He says that there is a rather popular shop there, so he would like to go to the opening and stock up on goodies. Theos asks why the heir to the duchy should go there personally, and then tells him to order the servants to do it and stay with Adelia. The son says that he is right, and then turns to his father and suggests that he rest. The gentleman turns to the butler and tells him to prepare a carriage for him. At this time, the main character thought that these incredible creatures had always been in her body, and she did not understand why she had not noticed them before. Adelia ponders that it is impossible that her father and brother, who wields aura, would not have sensed them, and she remembers that maybe her brother put her to sleep with aura that time. The girl believes that if the pain she felt immediately upon returning was due to the rapid separation of the aura, then now it is clear to her that she was caught and they already know everything. The main character thinks about the fact that she will have to live on the brink of death again. And she understands that since this is how it turned out, there is no point in living further as an ordinary aristocrat. And she wondered if she would be taken to the battlefield. The young lady believes that she must learn to control her aura. After all, she should not allow it to leave her body without his permission. Adelia understands that she has a poor idea of how to do this, and says that she is still a pain in the ass, and it was not enough for her, and also the aura causes trouble. Sword claims that they can neither remove nor lock her, and this is true. He asks what is wrong, and wonders if he said something wrong again. The main character suggests that he collect and lock the unstable aura back into the ball. She explains that the method of creating the ball is quite simple in itself, and all that needs to be done is to collect and condense the aura in his own heart, withstanding its heat. Regat asks in surprise why she did not create such balls in her past life. She answers that in adulthood, she was no longer able to weave balls of aura. The main character remembers that Barak explained that this is a method of collecting aura by creating a closed space in one's own heart. And when she heard this, she wonders if she can finally do it. But the man interrupts and says no. Barak explains that not only has he never seen a single successful case, but her heart is no longer able to withstand the process and believes that it would be tantamount to suicide. At this time, the young lady thought that it turns out that trying to do this is also dangerous, and then she says that she found a place where she can start. Adelia is completely submerged in water and tells the sword that she knows she could die if she fails. However, she believes that she already dies every time she helplessly watches someone die, and she says that it is unbearable and also hurts terribly. Regat looked at the girl who was crying and suggested that she calm down and then think about her dad and brother, since he remembered the pain of loss too well. The main character thought that she still hadn't enjoyed her life in retirement, and she thinks that this time she will definitely subjugate the aura. Regat looked at the girl in surprise, who had been underwater all this time, and asked what would happen if she died. He said that he no longer wanted to return to the snow-white prison, and asked her not to die, and he begged her about it. Hearing this, the main character smiled, and then asked what he said. Sword explains that he thought she was dying. She wonders if he wants to screw off as soon as she kicks the bucket. Regat explains that this is not what he wanted to say at that moment, and he asks what happened there. Adelia asks if he realized by looking at her that she is still alive, and then says that she almost died again. The girl, surprised, tells her friend to look there because the Duke of Esther's son is there. The girl says that it is true because he sometimes appears on the street of sweets. A friend says that this is the first time she's seen him in person, and she's wondering why Lady Rosehill is hanging on him. At this time, the young gentleman thought that no matter what Father Adele said, he would want to eat, and therefore he thought it would be better to buy everything himself. The girl says that if she had known that he was such a handsome man, she would have asked her father to propose to her. When Derek came, he saw that the store was closed, and at this time, he does not understand what is the point of him coming here if the shop was closed. At this time, the little girl asks him in surprise what he needs. The young gentleman explains that his sister really likes the pudding that is sold in this store, and therefore he would like to please her, but it turns out that this store is closed. The young lady asks if he is talking about Daddy's pudding. Derek asks if her daddy owns the shop. The girl says you are right. The young gentleman asks if she can ask Daddy when he opens the shop. The little girl says that the shop will not open again, and fortunately, they are closing, and it seems to her that her father even put the place up for sale. Hearing this, the young gentleman was surprised. The next morning, the main character greeted the maid Lily. She asks the mistress if she was looking for her. The girl explains that she is bored and asks if she knows where her dad and brother are. Lily replies that they left. Hearing this, the main character thought that, even despite that aura emission for some reason, it was so quiet because they returned to the pawns and they had already dashed back to the palace. The maid says that as far as she understands, they are both extremely busy people. The little lady replies that it is clear to her, and at that moment, she wonders why she felt so sad. Adelia remembers that she was never sick, not on any of her birthdays, not on the day of difficult exams, and her father was never there even once. Suddenly, the father turns to his daughter, and the girl is surprised to see him. He asks if she is already on her feet. She replies that she is already. And then the father puts his hand to her forehead and says that he should have told her to rest. Theo says it's good that the fever is gone, and then asks how Derek is doing. At this time, the main character thought that her dad had tried her forehead, and she believed that he was truly worried about hers. The butler replies that the young gentleman has returned. The gentleman says to tell the doctor that Adelia has woken up and needs to be examined. Hearing this, the girl assures that she is indeed fine. The young lady looked at the man standing behind her father and thought that he looked familiar. The father explains that they only hired this man today for Esther's mansion. The stranger takes off his capes and turns to the girl and says that he and Milady haven't seen each other for a long time. Adelia remembered that this was the man from Delon's Sweet Fudge of Joy. The next morning, the chef prepared the custard pudding that the young lady loves so much. He says he is also proud of the cheesecake with raspberry syrup, but this is one of his favorite desserts. Adelia eats dessert and says with pleasure that it is delicious. The main character remembers that the candy store was closed as a result of the hardships of war, and she realizes that she is trying Delon's pudding for the first time since her past life. The young lady asks the cook how he remembers what desserts she likes. He asks how he could forget, since she praised his pudding so many times when she came. The cook says that he heard that young Master Derek even visited him, and says that he lost time because of him. Derek objects, and explains that he is grateful to him for joining the Duke's close-knit family. The cook turns to his lordship and says that he is a hero of the Empire, and someone he admires, and then asks how he could refuse. At this time, the main character thought that they both don't like sweets, and now they are calmly eating them. Adelia reflects on the fact that she knew Delon was the best chef, and then she realized that she simply told her father that it was her favorite pudding, and he even brought a chef to them. And she remembers that, however, he always said that whoever wants to reach the top looks at the forest as a whole and not at the trees under his nose. The young lady thinks that her father definitely thinks differently, and she thinks that he is incredible. Suddenly, the girl wondered why her dad was looking at her like that, and she guessed that he probably thought that bringing the chef was a dirty move. A week later, Duke Esther bought a whole pudding shop for his daughter. The maid explains that such rumors have been circulating lately. Adelia asks Lily if she is serious or just encouraging her. She replies that it is true. The young lady thought that if you think about it like that, it is quite hard to believe that the Duke of Esther personally went to buy puddings. The young lady thought that maybe he really hired Delon because of her. She says that she wants to eat pudding, and the maid asks why so suddenly. The girl overheard the maids talking about how the Duke was not going to leave the mansion anytime soon, and everyone was saying that this was the first time he had stayed at home for so long. The main character thought that she was hearing about this for the first time, and she realized that he had already returned from the front a week ago, and she thought that he would run back as soon as he settled all the matters with the cancellation of admission. The little girl wondered if it was because of her aura. The maid will say that he also ordered to prepare for the banquet that was previously forbidden. The maid says that she did not even dream that there would be new banquets since the death of the Duchess, and then says that she understands why he hired a cook for the holiday. The maid reports that it will be difficult for Chef Corbin to cook enough food for the banquet on his own, and she thinks that this is because the young lady has personally admitted that she loves sweets. She hopes that the lady will eat her fill of her favorite puddings, and maybe even gain weight at last. Coming to her room, the little girl became interested in what else she expected. After all, she knew that hopes would only turn into pain, but still. Suddenly, a maid informs Milady that his lordship is looking for her. Hearing this, the girl thought that he had not paid attention to her all week, but finally decided to talk about the aura. The main character thinks that there is no particular point in trying to hide it, and believes that she will simply be honest. The father asks his daughter where the sacred sword is. The girl hears this and asks what he is talking about. The butler informs his lordship that he has brought in a young lady. The brother bids his sister come in, and the father tells her to sit down. The father asks his daughter how the personal conversation with the emperor went. She says that he seems like a man who likes to joke, and at that moment, she thought that he looks healthy, and she does not understand how it happens that he will pass away in just a year. The head of the family tells the little girl that if she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to take on the task of teaching the crown prince fencing. He says that if she doesn't like it, he will personally go to the emperor and ask him to cancel everything. However, the main character objects and explains that she agreed because she really doesn't mind. And at that time, she thought that, in addition, this is unlimited and legal access to the palace. She claims that nothing needs to be cancelled. Father asks how she plans to hide this from the perceptive crown prince. The little girl asks what to hide. He explains the sacred sword and aura as well as the sacred mark. The gentleman explains that a couple of days ago, when she returned from the temple, there was an aura around her. Adelia does not understand why she suddenly flew, because she did not know this until she was told. The father tells his daughter to listen because he didn't call her to scold her. Then he explains that he just wants to make sure she's safe. The young lady assures that it is not dangerous and that she has been chosen by the sacred sword. And then she claims that the sacred sword will never harm its owner. Father and brother heard this and were surprised. Derek asks if she is the owner of the sacred sword. He says that on that day in the temple, the sacred sword was aimed at her, and he does not understand how this can be. The little girl explains that he didn't attack her, but simply flew up to her, and then says that if he doesn't believe it, then let him see for himself. Father asks in surprise if this medallion is the sacred sword. Adelia explains that the sacred sword is able to change in size. Theos took the medallion in his hands and examined it carefully. At that moment, the girl heard the sword telling him not to touch it. The head of the family asks if the sacred sword chose her, and then says that it is as if it is alive, and also says that he heard that they can talk. The baby explains that only his voice can be heard by the owner, and it also helps control the aura. The brother asks the girl in surprise if she knew about her aura. Adelia replies that she knew since they left the temple together. Derek asks in surprise if the sacred swords can do that. The father thanked his daughter for telling him everything honestly. At that time, she thought about how her father knew everything and how she suspected it. Theo says that she should know that the aura is a dangerous thing, and if the public finds out about it, the close attention to Esther's house will only increase. A war hero, who is a close friend of the Emperor Deputy Commander of the Imperial Knights, known as a genius. Now also the owner of the aura, who successfully passes the entrance exams to the academy. The main character understands that sometimes so much is only harmful. Adelia speculates that people may become wary of further growth. Father says he knows of one person who manifested an aura before reaching adulthood. Hearing this, the main character became interested in whether her father knew someone with her illness, about whom even teacher Felson did not know. And she is also very interested in who this person is and what happened to him, and whether he is alive at all. The little girl asks if he is his friend. The father answers that she is right, and then explains that the manifestation of the aura at an early age is not scary in itself, especially if she is already able to control it. There is nothing to worry about. Adelia assures her father that she will be careful and show that she is able to perfectly handle both the aura and the sacred sword. The father gives the girl a medal and tells her to take care of it since she is the rightful owner of the sacred sword. The main character asks if they both really believe her. The brother says that there is no reason not to believe. The girl thought that after her refusal to enroll, she probably had many questions, and she does not understand why he does nothing. The father tells the little girl that she is free and can go. When the daughter left, the son asks his father if he really will leave everything as it is. He answers that Adelia was born with an aura, and twice a year, her aura periodically went out of control. Father says that, as far as he knows, a raging aura can be suppressed by a stronger one, and he regularly suppressed it. He says that this time the cycle was broken, and if you do not react in time and suppress it, the consequences will be dire. Derek reminds her that he said there was another person who showed an aura at an early age. She asks if her father learned how to deal with this situation from that person. The head of the family replies that it is so. The son wonders if they should ask this person for help and tell him about Adele's condition. Hearing this, Theos objects. The young gentleman asks if this man is dead, and then surprised he asks about his sister. Is she really dead too? The father suggests the boy to calm down, because Adelia is completely different. The father explains that the person he mentioned at all could not control his aura until the very end. The Duke says that he has also taken on too much on the physical plane and has only brought his death closer. He believes that his daughter is in a slightly different situation. Theos explains that he swore that, as long as this child was alive, he would let her do whatever she wanted, and unless it threatened her life, he would just like to be an observer. In the evening, lying in her bed, the main character thought that her father lied, because she, having already died from this disease, understands better than anyone, and she believes that if this continues, she will definitely die. Adelia wonders if maybe he just decided to reassure her, so that she wouldn't worry, since she was especially aware of her father's gaze and grumbling under his breath today. The main character remembers a man's conversation about how people already know and can take their medicine. He tells the girl that she shouldn't fool him, because he knows that her legs and shoulders aren't in the best condition. The guy tells the girl to forget about the war and take better care of her health, and then asks if she wants to come back as a cripple, because he would like the owner of the sword to be safe. Adelia asks what kind of words are coming from the crown prince's mouth, and then surprised says that a knight should not think about himself in wartime. The young gentleman claims that this is no reason to maim her, and then claims that he is ordering her, the girl, objects, and suggests that he not talk nonsense. Cartzes says that if she was going to continue to be, and slowly die in front of his eyes being his bodyguard. In the morning, the maid turns to Milady and informs her that the carriage has already arrived. The young lady asks in surprise what she is talking about. Lily replies that there is no time to explain. The maid reports that His Highness the Crown Prince sent a carriage for her from the palace. When Adelia arrived at the castle, a man met her. He asks the lady if she got there. Okay. And then he says that his name is Ludd, and he is the assistant of His Highness the Crown Prince. The main character greeted him, and then asked if this was not their first meeting. She reminded him that they had recently met in the palace hall. Liud objects, and says that this is officially the first meeting, because then he did not greet her or introduce himself. Hearing this, the young lady thought that, as expected from Luda, she recalls that even being the crown prince's bodyguard, she could not immediately find an approach to this man. The assistant invites the lady to follow him, since His Highness is already waiting for her. Adelia thought that if she had simply withdrawn her application to the academy and lived quietly on it, would have been hard to see all this as any child growing up in isolation. When the lady entered the castle, she was surprised by the luxury of this palace. She recalls that even after becoming the owner of the sacred sword, she only visited this place a few times on business. The main character reflects that after she retired, she began to be in public even less. After all, she did not want to attract the attention of the imperial family, and therefore did not even write letters, but simply disappeared. The girl wondered how the prince felt when he learned of her sudden death one day. The assistant informs His Highness that the daughter of the Esther family is there. He asks if she has arrived yet. Adelia thought that she had come to fulfill the order, and even though it was late, she was still in this place. The crown prince asks the girl if they teach manners in Esther's house. Hearing this, the main character realized that she was daydreaming, and then she says that Adelia greets His Highness the Crown Prince, and may the grace of Kronos illuminate him. Cartzes asks the lady if she is his sparring partner for today. She replies that she is, as His Majesty gave her such an order. The Crown Prince says that he did not give his consent to this, but he is interested in what she is like in action. He says that she is wearing a dress and does not even have a sword with her. Hearing this, the main character thought that she was so anxiously awaiting the meeting with the prince that she forgot about everything else. And the little girl understands that, however, given her current age, his reactions are normal, as is his suspicion, because she is the only one who remembers the past. Adelia says that he is right in his observation, because she understands that she looks so, and then claims that she is indeed a capable knight, who, like him, is a deeply dowered son and heir to the Rosian Empire. The young lady asks if he wants to test her. His Highness takes the sword and gives it to the girl, and then says that she can keep it if she doesn't mind. At this time, the main character thought that she had already crossed swords with him hundreds of times. Kartzer says that she has a good stance. She replies that her father and brother taught her this. At this time, she thought that her left shoulder was slightly constrained in movement, but she understands that if she only gets a little closer, she can break through his defense by force. The girl quickly turned the sword and pointed it at His Highness's neck, and then she said that she hoped that she had passed his test. The Crown Prince says he is looking forward to his next training session. The girl asks in surprise if he recognizes her skills. The young gentleman explains that, of course, she is another genius of the Esther family. And hearing this, she says that he flatters her. His Highness claims that this is true, because they are like this from loyalty to the Empire to modesty. The young lady agrees with him and says that their lineage is truly loyal. Kartzes says that even though they are praised by the citizens, they remain humble and are truly strong and loyal to a rich and noble family. The little girl agrees with him and says that it is true. She does not understand why he says all this for no reason. His Majesty asks if there is a reason why she is being watched so closely. She replies that there is. The young gentleman says that the branches are beginning to break from the constant wind, and he wonders if this will affect Esther's family. The Crown Prince suggests setting up the next training session in 2 days, and then tells the girl that she can go. When the little girl left, the young gentleman asks the assistant what he managed to find out. Ludd replies that Aston has returned and Tedor can see him. He asks how he likes the personal meeting. The young gentleman replies that he has mixed feelings. After all, he understands that he was rude a couple of times, but she endured everything with a smile and considers it suspicious. Kartzer says that he thinks she unwittingly released her, but at that age it is common to have an aura, so she is definitely a genius. The Crown Prince says that the denunciations are clearly different from what their uncle has been sending them all this time, and he believes that his testimonies are clearly incorrect. The assistant says that Nekar worked directly in Esther's mansion, and then he says that the only place where poisonous herbs are grown is Esther's duchy, and this is obvious because all the evidence points to them. The young gentleman claims that pressure only increases suspicion. At this time, the main character asks the maid if Caroline is here. She replies that the mistress is in the living room. Derek says he heard a lady came a few days ago. Then he asks if something happened in Rose Hills. Caroline objects and says they just haven't seen each other for a long time. The young lady reports that she wanted to see him as soon as she heard that he had returned to the duchy after a long time. The young gentleman says that he was supposed to come to her and then apologizes for making her come all this way. Caroline says that it's okay because she met Adelia, and that's why she wasn't bored. Derek asks in surprise if it's true, and then says that she seemed to have matured after that illness. Adelia overheard their conversation and thought that they were having such a nice conversation, and therefore she decided that she would not disturb them. As soon as the little girl wanted to leave, her brother noticed her. Carolina tells the girl that at least she said she was here. The little girl suggests not to pay attention to her because they should be together. The bride objects and says that she has something for the girl, and then says that it is an invitation to tea. The Rose Hills will have. Having heard this, Caroline was surprised because she thought that the little girl had already been to many. Derek asks his sister how the meeting with the Crown Prince is going. Hearing this, Caroline is surprised and asks if Adelia is engaged. The main character objects and says that this is not so, and then explains that she is going to train His Highness in fencing. The bride says that this is amazing news, and then asks if she is not going to the academy. Adelia replies that she withdrew her application because she wanted something. Caroline says that it is clear to her, since she refused to enroll in the academy on a whim. She says that there are not the most flattering rumors about the prince, and asks if everything was okay. The bride explains that because he rarely appears in public, there are rumors about him that he is weak and incompetent. The little girl explains that there is nothing like that, because from what she saw, he thinks quite sensibly and thinks about the people. Hearing this, Carolina says that it is a relief for her. The main character thought that if his people had singled him out in the case, these unfounded rumors of incompetence would have disappeared in an instant. However, she believes that he is really restrained in his words and actions because of his suspicion. Adelia believes that this is an advantage in terms of information warfare, but she understands that it greatly hinders her when trying to get closer to him. And when the little girl was alone, the sword turned to her and said that she smelled like another sword. He asked if it was fun, and then said that he would also like to have fun and squeeze into another iron object. The main character explains that she still has poor control over the aura, and at that time, she thought that, out of caution, she left Riga at home, but the prince still suspected something. At this time, the girl thought that if she was sincere with him, His Highness would be able to understand her, and she would not be upset. The little girl is thinking that the first lesson is in a couple of days, and she suggests that she can offer him some tea after the workout. When the main character came to the crown prince, he looked at her and said that today she was already wearing suitable clothes. The little girl tells His Highness that she does not want to be cast out because of her outfit. The young gentleman turns to Cliff and says that this is Lady Esther, who is applying for his position as fencing instructor. The prince explains that this is Count Cliff Miller, and that he is currently his acting instructor. At this time, the main character thought that it was because of accident that his picture of the world was distorted, and she thinks that is why he is such a pest. The instructor tells the girl that he is glad to meet her. The gentleman says that he and her father, Duke Esther, recently met on the battlefield. The lady was surprised to hear this. Adelia reports that the family that founded the empire is the creator of modern fencing techniques for imperial knights, and he is the same Miller who published the manual on tactics. Cliff heard this, smiled, and said that everything was correct. The little girl says that she met a living legend, and at that time she thought about what she should have said. If he had such a fencing mentor, then she wonders why she still didn't know. The girl understands that she spent a lot of time with His Highness in the past, and she does not understand how she has never seen this man. Cliff asks the young lady what her skill level is and wonders if it is the same as the crown prince's. The main character explains that if they had different levels, then the training process would have to be organized differently, and she believes that each of them could develop what they lack. Adelia explains that she is not here to rework His Highness's foundations, and instead will only help hone his skills. Hearing this, the young gentleman suggests using real swords. The young lady claims that this sounds great since she has been using wooden ones for too long. Cancer offers to test her skills and see if she is as good as he thinks, and then suggests that the girl attack him. The fencing assistant says that they have already started. Adelia thought about what she just remembered, that accident executed Count Miller, whom everyone revered so much, and all his closest relatives were also beheaded, so there are no more Millers. The girl remembers that the teacher explained to her that he was not there because Miller got involved in political strife, and so he suggests that the lady be careful. The young lady believes that a hunting dog never knows when he will be thrown out, and she realizes that she does not know when Cliff will get involved with accident and thinks that she should keep an eye on him. The fencing assistant tells them that it's enough for a small test. Then he says that her skills are not praised for nothing. Cliff explains that teaching two geniuses at once is a heavy burden of responsibility for an old man. Adelia thanked the man, and then said that she hadn't sweated like that for a long time. The butler turns to His Highness and says that it seems to him that the gentleman had better come quickly because of the emperor's condition, and then he invites the lady to return to her place. Karsus tells the lady that they will see each other in the next lesson, and then leaves. At this time, the main character thought that she understood his feelings well, since she had experienced the bitterness of losing her entire family and complete loneliness on her own skin. The little girl understands what he is going through and how he worries, and that is why she thinks she knows how to support him. But she knows even better that she cannot share her knowledge with anyone. Adelia knows that she herself needs to protect many people, but she doesn't understand why it hurts so much. When the girl turned 10 years old, her father and brother congratulated her on this holiday. The head of the family asks the girl that if she wishes he will organize a big celebration. Adele replies that it is her birthday, and therefore she would like to spend it with her family, since they have not gotten together for so long. The young lady thought that she had no one else to call anyway, and when she ate a piece of cake, she realized that it was very tasty as always, but as if it had become even tastier in the last couple of days. The little girl saw a lot of gift wrapping in the hallway and asked who all these gifts were from. The brother says that it must be from the knights, and it seems to him that he praised her too often. And at that time, he thought about what he told the knights, that today was his sister's birthday, and that they should definitely give her something. Adele says that even Caroline sent her a gift. She gave her a spinel ruby from the western continent, and in Latin spinel means thorn, and she thinks that it is very strong and therefore very suitable for Adele. After reading the note, the main character says that she didn't know that Caroline was so generous, and thinks that she should give her flowers for tea. Derek says that the last one is a gift from him and his father. The young lady does not understand why this box is so huge, and when she opened it, she saw a picture of their family. The brother says that they called the artist before the last war and asks if she remembers. She answers that she remembers. Derek says it took a long time because they also asked for smaller versions for each room. Adelia thanked them and then said that she would treasure this painting. Father says that thank God, and he promises that next year he will definitely arrange a big celebration in her honor. At this time, the main character thought that she was growing up, and this only meant that the war was also approaching. And now it was only about 2 years away. Adelia understands that if she wants to protect their happiness, then this is not the time for her to rest. The maid asks the mistress if she wants to wear the same training suit as last time, and then she says that she has received a letter from the palace. And the main character tells the maid to prepare her cloak, because it might be chilly tomorrow. Sword turns to his sister and asks why she is going out, and then says that since the training ended early, she could go home and rest. The young lady thought that she needed to go to Grizel's guild, where she usually practiced for information. After all, His Majesty's condition was deteriorating faster than she expected, and the reasons were still unknown to her. The little girl thinks that if she, who knows the future, doesn't take the situation into her own hands, then she wonders who can do it. And she understands that she will have to postpone her resignation for now. Rigart tells his sister that he remembered it was Grizel's guild and asks if it is true. She replies that it is true and then knocks on the door. The young lady doesn't understand why no one comes out and thinks that maybe the password is wrong, and then she knocks because she is sure that the password is correct. She thought that maybe they are closed or gone. Adelia suddenly remembered that on days when the black market or arena opens, the guild is usually closed, and she doesn't understand what to do because an opportunity like today may not present itself again. The sword asks if they should run away at night. The main character thought that while her brother and father were in the mansion, the risk of being caught was too great, and she wondered what she would tell them if she was caught. Rigger says that he understands and suggests looking for another guild. Adelia believes that if you go to competitors, it should be a place where the information network is much better established, since the local guildmaster, although a dark horse, is almost impossible to find an expert better than him. The sword says that she is right and suggests going to the arena. The girl says that it is a good idea because she understands that if they get there, they will surely find the guildmasters. Rigart asks in surprise if she is serious about going, and then says that he doesn't like it. However, he thinks that if they are lucky, they will even meet Barak. The main character hid behind the house and then looked at the children who were tied with a rope and stood in line. The man says that this little rat always disobeys and even bit him. He says that this is a vile offspring that can't even be called a dog. The stranger says that he told them to treat them like dogs, and then claims that for this very reason, their mouths should be kept tightly shut. The man replies that the noble guests like it better when the puppies don't have a single scratch, and then tells him not to spoil his raspberries. The stranger says that he understands everything, and then says that it is time to bring it in, and tells the children to follow him. Rigard turns to his sister and says that these children are strange, and judging by their aura, it is black magic. She thinks that it is not surprising that there was no reaction even when she was introduced. Sword asks what will happen to these children. She answers that she does not know, and then says that she can get them out of here, but does not understand what will happen next. The main character reflects that she will not be able to take them all in, nor find a home for each of them, and she believes that for now the most important thing is to save her own family. At this time, the action began in the arena. The man angrily says that he lost again, because he thought that at least one would survive. And he understands that if at least one rat had survived, he would have recouped all his losses. The young lady thought that they were crazy, and the sword offers her to look straight ahead, because there are still children behind bars. Adelia saw Barak, and at that moment thought that she did not expect to actually see him here. Rosian Empire's Gladiator arena is a little different from other empires. Usually adult slaves fight in the arena, but they use children to train the fighters. The young lady believes that this is a common massacre, and the victims are most often children from small wild tribes. And she understands that this only fuels the passion of aristocrats and lovers of easy money. The girl knows that the arena will be closed down through the efforts of the Crown Prince, but it will take another 15 years to do so. and until then, children continue to die. And even if they survive, they will live in fear for the rest of their days. Adelia knows that Barak will live in fear too. She thinks about getting him out of there. Sword asks how to do that since the next round is about to start, and then wonders if they are going to tear this place apart. The main character says that she will simply take the children out of there because she believes that it is enough that they survive. The girl understands that she cannot clear it yet, but she can cause chaos to delay the start of the fighting. The owner of the arena usually sits in the exclusive box for aristocrats, and the young lady thinks that Master Grizel is also somewhere there. She thinks that this may be the last day that Barak can see with both eyes. The doctor tells His Majesty that he will not last long because he has taken too much poison. The emperor says that he understands that he must look pitiful. The doctor tells him that he needs to go, and then tells him that if he feels worse, he should let him know immediately, without delay. His Majesty says that this doctor is strict because he is new. The Duke says that this is good because he shows how much he cares about the condition and health of His Majesty. The Emperor says that the future Duke has grown a lot since their last meeting, and then says that he heard that he has already returned to the Knights, and therefore he hopes that everything went without problems. Derek objects and says that everything is business as usual, except that the Knights are complaining and want him to go back. His Majesty says that it is funny, and then asks how the Duke's daughter is, and he wonders if she is enjoying the training. Theos asks how she can tell whether she likes it or not after just a couple of lessons. His Majesty asks if his son has made any comments. Gertzok replies that he has not, and then asks if he has found out who else is behind this poisoning. The Emperor replies that he has not found out yet, but he does not think he should worry about it. The Duke says that they are leaving and suggests that His Majesty rest. At this time, Adelia dealt with one bandit. Sword asks why she used aura. The girl asks in surprise if he wants her to knock out a strong guy with just the strength of her little hands without a weapon, and then she says that she can't use one. The guard says that they checked and there was no one there who possessed an aura. And when he saw a little girl, he screams and asks who she is, and suggests that he immediately throw down his sword. At this time, the main character thought that she had no choice, and then turned around and finished them off with her sword. Derek asks his father, no matter what His Majesty says, wouldn't it be better for them to investigate everything themselves? His father objects, and then says that he and His Majesty know who the criminal is, but he drank poison and fell into eternal sleep before he could tell them anything. The son asks if His Majesty lied. He replies that it would be better to keep him informed, and then reports that the culprit was His Majesty's previous physician, Nekar. Hearing this, the young gentleman thought that it was the same Nekar whom he had transferred to Esther's mansion several years ago. The vice-captain said there were many wounded everywhere, and all were too depressed to organize a proper send-off, and so the bodies were left as they were. The captain suggests moving quickly to avoid potential infection, and then says to share the spoils and help with the burial, since the duchy will cover the expenses. The man approaches the gentleman knight and says that, thanks to him, he was able to say goodbye to his wife and son, and then thanked him with all his heart. Nekar says that he can't stay in a village full of memories of his family. He says that he has knowledge in medicine and therefore offers to take him in as he is sure that they will need him. Derek wonders why such a kind person would do such things, and he wonders why His Majesty and father also kept it a secret until now. Dad explains that they just knew he would be worried, and then assures him that it was his choice, and it is not his fault. The head of the family tells his son not to even think about blaming himself for this. At this time, a man in the arena says he is bored, and then asks who the guest of the program is. The assistant says that he is sure that the upcoming match will be more interesting. The man asks if he sees this red-headed boy, and then says that he is the youngest son of the elder of the Ratika tribe. Suddenly, the man saw a sword near his neck and screamed and asked the guards how they had missed this suspicious person. The main character claims that it is useless to shout, because no one will come. The worried man asks what she wants, money or his life. She replies neither, and then suggests that they simply stop the fighting. The owner of the arena says that he knows who she is. Hearing this, the girl thought that she was sure that she hit her face. The aristocrat screams and asks if these devils from the second street that runs their arena sent her. He says that he sent gladiators a couple of times to disrupt their matches, and does not understand how anyone could do such a thing. The man says that he knows that they have been without clients for a month and asks why they should respond in kind. Hearing this, the sword says that it is trash. The main character decided to play along with him and says that he is a bastard, because of whom her master is angry as hell, and therefore she thinks that it is better for him to shut his mouth before she tears it. Suddenly, the young lady saw a magical artifact on the man's hand. At this time in the arena, the knight tells the children that they have entertained him well, and then says that it is time to calm down. He swings his sword at the child. Suddenly, everyone hears that the head of the arena suggests that everyone stop. At this time, Barak screams and tells the guys to quickly go to the exit. Seeing this, Adelia thought that she was racking her brains over how to get them out, but they figured it out themselves as expected from Barak. The nobleman asks the lady if she will finish him off. She says that her master wants to destroy this arena completely and utterly. The main character says that if she finds out that the matches have resumed and asks if he knows what will happen, then she says that this man should behave well if he doesn't want to meet her again. The head of the arena says that he understands everything and will close this case immediately. At this time, fights between visitors began in the arena. The young lady thought that all she had to do was make sure that the children got out, because she understood that the guards were not up to them now, and thought that it would be easy to do. Adelia turns to the guys and says that she knows she looks suspicious, but asks if they can at least listen to her. The young gentleman takes off his mask and asks in surprise if she not only caused a stir today, but also kidnapped the children. The girl assures His Highness that she is not guilty. He says that he would like to hear her out. Adelia asks how she kidnapped the children, and then says that they are standing calmly and not running away. The girl claims that she saved them and did not kidnap them. The Crown Prince asks if he should believe it. She assures him that the children can confirm it, and then turns to the boys and asks them to tell him the truth. Kartzes looked at the children and said that they looked like she had scared them. Suddenly, they saw men heading in their direction. One of them says that the devil in the blue cape knocked out all the guards, and he screams and says that they did not let him leave with the slaves. Adelia asks the prince if he now gets the point. The girl says that she will cross first and buy them time to attack. The young gentleman asks if she is too self-confident. The main character claims that she believes in her skills because she believes that the future emperor should not suffer in such a place. The guard turns to His Highness and says that he apologizes for being late and asks if he is injured. The man saw people lying unconscious on the ground and says that he sees that the gentleman is whole. The Crown Prince asks where the owner of this arena is. The guard replies that he was the first to run away when the confusion began, and they also could not find the documents. Seeing the guy, the main character remembered that it was Aston, and was also surprised that he was alive. She understands that the day of his death is still before her eyes, and it is somehow incomprehensible to her to see him alive. Aston looked at the girl and asked who this little thing was. Hearing this, the main character thought that his language was lousy from the start. People suggest showing respect to the lady. The prince tells them to deal with the guards and send the children home. At this time, a guy with red hair approached the girl and asked who she was. Barak says that this guy in the black cloak is called His Highness, and that means he is a prince, and those two are most likely from the palace. And then he claims that all these people are not equal to her, and he asks if she is an aristocrat. Barak says he's never seen anyone move so fast. The young lady explains that it happened because she was almost captured by the guards. However, the guy claims that it happened earlier, and he saw it from the arena. Hearing this, the main character thought that she had hidden her presence and was far away from him, and did not understand how he could see something. Lud approaches the guy, and then apologizes, and says that he also needs his address. The guy with red hair asks what next. The prince says that if he has a family, he can return to them, and if not, he will live comfortably in the royal shelter until he is adopted. Barak says he wants revenge, and then explains that his tribe was attacked and killed, and he was simply kidnapped. He doesn't know who is behind it, but wants to find them and get revenge. The guy says that he has nowhere to return to, and he cannot live in a shelter every day thinking about his murdered family. Adelia approaches His Highness and tells him that she wants to help this child, because she believes that his combat sense and situational assessment are excellent, and thinks that if he is assigned to the guild, he will become an excellent informant. The main character says that if he had seen how this guy fought in the arena, he would have understood everything. The prince replies that he saw the guy escape, and then says that he is indeed impressive, and he agrees with that. Kartzer asks Lud and Aston if they have decided on the addresses of the other children. Lud says that the carriage is ready. The young gentleman offers to take them to a safe place and invites the girl and the boy to follow him. Adelia looked at the house and realized that it was the crown prince's secret base. On the first and second floors, there was a regular dining room and living rooms, and the third floor required access, and only 2 types of people had it: those who Kartzes trusted infinitely, and those who needed to be dealt with quietly. The young gentleman looked at the surprised girl and asked if she knew this place. She explained that she had once driven past this hotel. The prince asks the guy with red hair what his name is. He replies that it is Barak Therese. His Highness informs him that he will place him in the guild, and until then, he will stay here. Hearing this, the guy is surprised and asks if it is really possible, and then thanks him and says that he will definitely repay his kindness. Adelia asks if she can go. He tells her to follow him. His Majesty says that he would like to offer her a drink, but does not know what she prefers. The girl says that she doesn't care. And at that moment, she thought that everything there was so familiar to her that she almost blurted out something unnecessary. The main character asks if he canceled training to visit the arena. The young gentleman explains that he did not know whether such an opportunity would present itself again, because he had long wanted to clear this place and arrest the organizers. But he understands that someone got ahead of him and they escaped, and therefore he believes that he failed. Adelia says that she is sorry that she inadvertently disrupted his plans, and swears that she is not an enemy of the imperial family, just like him. She asks him to believe her. The young gentleman explains that he knows she wasn't trying to kidnap the children, and then asks why she went to the arena in the first place and where she got the information about her. At this time, the crown prince thought that the third floor needed access, and only 2 types of people had it. Therefore, he needed to decide whether she was an enemy or not before letting her go. The young lady realizes that he is still wary of her. Regard asks his sister what they will do, and he wonders if their lives will end in this place. Adelia calms the sword, and at this time thinks that the Esters are neutral, but deeply support the weight of the royal family. She understands that they will not dare to break these ties without solid evidence. The main character thinks that he is just trying to scare her. If she were a real child, she would have already trembled. Sword asks if there is really nothing to be afraid of. The girl believes that if she fails to dispel his suspicions, then no one knows how everything will turn out. However, she believes that this is unfair. The sword suggests that she say that they simply returned in time. The young lady imagines this situation and thinks that he might not believe it. However, she understands that, to be honest, this is a good strategy. Adelia asks if he thinks that she doesn't know what all Esters know. And at that moment, she thought that she would tell the truth, just not in its entirety. The girl says that she can reveal the source of her information as much as she wants, but without any idea as proof of her loyalty. The main character says that he can test her in any way, because His Highness is wise, and she is sure that he himself has already understood everything. The prince agrees with her and says that at least he is not bored, and then says that they will see each other at the next training. Late in the evening, the maid asks the mistress how the training went. She replies that today she strengthened her friendship with the crown prince. The maid asks if it doesn't tire her to travel such long distances every time. The lady objects and says that she doesn't do anything special except fencing. The young lady says that she would like to learn embroidery, dancing, and cooking. Hearing this, Lily wondered when the young lady, who only knew the sword, had managed to grow so much. The girl looked at her and asked if it was surprising. The maid says that she is sure that if the lady learns to embroider and gives something to his lordship, he will be pleased. And if she gets married one day, hearing this girl interrupted her screaming and objecting. Adelia thought that if her fiancé was a childhood friend from her native region, he would kill her just a year after their wedding. And then the main character claims that she wants to say that she will not accept just anyone as her spouse. She says that it must be a respectable gentleman with a good appearance and soul-educated wise, skillfully using both the sword and the word. The mistress claims that only such a noble man is worthy of marrying her. Hearing this, the maid says that she simply wishes that she never got married and asks if this is true. Lilia says that even if she is against it, she will still stay and serve her, and suggests that she not worry. However, the main character understands that the future is full of unfortunate events, from people who faithfully serve the Empire, and friends who shared life and death with her to her family. The young lady understands that even if they don't remember her as a hero, as long as she remembers, she has no right to turn away from them. Before going to bed, the girl prayed and asked the Almighty to let her sincerity reach the heart of His Highness. At the same time in Tedor, His Highness asks if there is any information from the cancellation of enrollment in her aura. In this place, the assistant explains that he was unable to find out anything and then apologizes. Layud says that if this information has not been revealed, it means that the Esters are deliberately carefully hiding it. Cancer asks, "What about the incident at the temple?" He replies that the investigation is still ongoing, but according to the testimony of the priest Jinuel, it seems that Estera had nothing to do with it. Lud says that they are lucky that the story of the sword's disappearance has not yet spread beyond the temple. However, he believes that when it does, it is only a matter of time, and if rumors spread among the masses, unrest will arise. The young master says that such a big matter as the disappearance of the sacred sword cannot be hidden for long, and he says that alas, he still has not learned anything about the princess that was not already known. Lud reminds her that he interrogated her yesterday. Cancer replies that he couldn't get anything important out of her, but given his suspiciousness, she probably didn't take action. The assistant asks if maybe she really is innocent. His Highness says that he hopes so, and understands that if he can get the Esters on his side, it will be a powerful card to help keep Freyr in check. However, he understands that, for the same reason, he cannot simply abandon his suspicions. Punisher understands that he cannot allow a sharp sword to be pointed at him in the rear, and he believes that one day he will be able to completely rid himself of suspicion. The next day, Adele tells her brother that she wants to go and buy a dress for the tea party. However, he objects, and the girl assures him that she will take Aaron and Def with her as guards. The young gentleman says that she is only 10 years old, and 2 guards are not enough, and therefore he goes with her. Hearing this, the main character says that he himself was actually 10 when he first found himself on the battlefield. She doesn't understand why her dad and brother can do it, but she can't, and asks about it. The young gentleman says that, of course, it is possible, but explains that Dad was walking arm in arm with Grandpa, and then asks if that is true. Def says they'll get a carriage ready. Derek realizes that since they're buying dresses, they'll definitely need a porter. Adelia asks in surprise how the heir to a duchy can be used as a porter. He explains that there aren't many porters as educated as he is. The young lady agrees with him and says that it is true and thought that he had disrupted all her plans since she was planning to get into the guild today. The brother asks the girl if this is the first time they go somewhere together. She agrees with him and says that the weather is really cool. A short time later, they were already walking along the main street of the city. On the street, a woman approaches a vendor and asks if he is still selling souvenirs from last year's celebration of the founding of the empire. He asks her in response whether she came to buy or to ask questions. The seller says that today there will be both the emperor and the crown prince, and therefore he thinks that the souvenirs should be different and asks the lady if she thinks the same. The woman claims that she was not at last year's Foundation Day festival and therefore has no interest in whether the emperor is still alive. After hearing their conversation, the main character thought that they were discussing dangerous things. The seller says that, to be honest, he would like Duke Freyr to become the new emperor. He says that he even shook his hand when he came to inspect. As she was leaving, the woman wished the seller to sell everything. The young gentleman asks his sister where she is going. He is interested in what she wants to buy there. The girl replied that nothing and suggested that he go, and at that time, she thought that she understood how people saw the imperial family. Adelia knows that in her past life too, when Axidum inherited the throne, no one asked questions sword. Say that this scoundrel skillfully pretends to care about the people. The young lady believes that a person who pursuing personal goals starts wars and takes risks will lead the empire to collapse, and she does not understand how she can change her already established views. The girl understands that the situation looks hopeless. The brother says that they are already there and asks if they are going to choose dresses. For a few minutes, the little girl tried on the dress and asked if it suited her, and then put on another one and claimed that she liked it. She said that she wanted to try on a few more dresses. Derek tells the shop assistant that they are taking all the dresses the young lady has tried on. Hearing this, the girl claims that one dress is enough for her tea party. The young gentleman objects and says, "No way." Then he says that she is growing up and will soon be attending many different events, and therefore he thinks that she needs more ready-made outfits. The main character thought that since her family had fallen and her savings had been taken away, she wore only a uniform and therefore even forgot to think about luxury. The saleswoman tells the lady that this dress fits her perfectly, and as if it was tailored for her, she asks if she likes it, then she can go with it. The girl replies that she will do so. Adelia asks her brother what he's looking at. He says he thinks this, and this would suit her too, and then asks if maybe he should buy the whole store. Derek asks who the designer is at the store, and then says he wants to hire him personally. The main character says that there are still decorations up there, and therefore suggests to her brother to go quickly because she wants to see more there and asks if they have any money left. Hearing this, the young gentleman asks her in surprise what her general opinion is about the esters, and then explains that he can even cover such amounts at his own expense, and therefore suggests that she not worry. Suddenly, they heard a conversation that one lady wanted to buy a hairpin. The saleswoman reminds the lady that she herself said that she would only look at dresses because she has plenty of accessories. However, the lady objects and says that she wants this hairpin. Suddenly, a girl with dark hair falls down the stairs. Seeing this, the young gentleman screams and says that it is dangerous. And then Adelia grabs the girl. The main character asks Miss if she is okay, and then says that her cute dress is wrinkled, and she is a beauty without a hairpin. The maid asks her mistress if she's okay, and then turns to her master and thanks them. Derek turns to his sister and says that he is impressed by her behavior. Then, he asks where she learned to coo like that. The young lady asks him what he means. He replies that he thought only his friends could do that. Hearing this, the main character thought that it seemed to have become a habit to stand in front of the citizens of the empire, justifying all the actions of the imperial family, and also to play the role of a beautiful heroine, kind and good for years. Adelia says that it is great that no one was hurt and suggests moving on. However, her brother again claims that she is a real knight. The girl asks what he is talking about. At this time, the rescued girl asks her maid if it was Lady Esther. She answers that she has silver hair and scarlet eyes and believes that it is definitely her. Hearing this, Olivia screams and says that everyone says that she is rude and that she is only interested in the sword. And then she says that she is different from the rumors. The maid asks if it's not good, and then says that it's lucky that this lady was there and saved her. The people turn to His Highness and ask him to eat something. The young gentleman says that he was not bothered over trifles. However, the assistant claims that he needs to eat because he has not taken a bite in the palace, and he knows that the master has been starving since yesterday. Kartzer says that he himself knows that even the maid who was with him for all 5 years from the moment of his birth tried to poison him, and he believes that no one can be trusted in the palace. Lud says that he understands, and therefore asks to eat at least this, since he watched the cooking process from beginning to end. The young gentleman began to eat, and the assistant asks if it was tasty. The prince looked out the window and saw Derek and Adelia, and thought that they were just in time because he wanted to discuss something with them. His Majesty tells Aston that outside there are the young lord and lady of the Esther family and their knights. Aston quickly ran outside and caught up with the gentleman, and then asked if he was a member of the knightly order Magnus from the duchy. The young man says that he has heard about the joint training of the royal knights and the knights of Magnus, and then says that he is sorry that he cannot attend them more often due to official duties. Derek apologizes and then explains that today his time belongs entirely to his sister. His Majesty approaches them and says that he wants to talk to the young lady, and then asks the girl to give her a minute. Kartzer says that he called because he thinks that she would be interested in information about the children that they saved that time. Adelia asks if everyone got home safely. He replies that some went home and some went to the shelter, and Barak was introduced to the guild as she requested. The girl says that she hopes that he is introduced to the Grizel Guild. The young master replies that this is so because they are short of hands, and so he was taken on as an errand boy. Hearing this, the main character says that it is a relief, and then gives His Majesty a brooch and says that it is a gift. The prisoner asks why she is doing this. The young lady explains that she is grateful for his assistance and that it was bought with her own money. Then she says that she is leaving. When Adele saw her brother, she realized that he was not bored. Derek asks his sister if she has finished her business, and then suggests that she go quickly. He tells Sir Aston that he was glad to see him. The girl turns to her brother and says that she thinks Astina really likes him. He replies that they have known each other for a long time and often met at the estate. The young gentleman explains that he once defeated him in a duel, and since then, they have seen each other often. At this time, the main character thought that she wanted to find out how to get closer to Aston, but she understood that this would not help her much. The girl reflects that trying to pull the aura out of a 10-year-old body will only lead to injuries. Derek asks if they are going back to the estate. Adelia says that she would like to visit the blacksmith shop again. Then she says that she needs a sword because she knows how to use it. Derek claims that a member of Esther's clan won't be able to wield just any sword. Dev stood at the door, asking if this was a blacksmith shop, and then he knocked on the door, and it was closed. The brother tells the girl that he knows a good place on the first street, and then asks why here. She answers because she wants to. Adelia knocks on the door and then screams, saying that the clients have arrived and that they should greet the guests. The brother turns to the girl, but she tells him not to stop her. He claims that this is not the issue, and then he takes her hand and suggests that he do it himself. The young gentleman knocks on the door and then screaming announces that it is the Esters and asks if there is anyone inside. A few minutes later, the brother tells the girl that he thinks there is no one there. Then he asks if she should try to break in. Suddenly a man comes out and asks who is there. The main character realized that this man is Norbert. He is the heir of the one who reforged the ancient relic into a sacred sword many years ago. Adelia knows that soon he will be the only blacksmith who is able to work with sacred relics. The blacksmith invited the gentleman to come inside, and sitting at the table, he pours himself some alcohol. The main character realized that he was Norbert from the past 20 years ago. Sword asks if he serves Axidum. The girl remembers that in her past life, she pulled him out of the forest after the funeral of his beloved daughter. Riegert says that since he is still in the forge, it means that his daughter is still alive. Derek says that the swords are excellent and worth noting. The blacksmith asks what the respected aristocrats need here. Adelia asks him to go to work in the Esther forge. Hearing this, the brother turns to her, but the girl interrupts and offers him to look at all these weapons, since she believes that they are ideal. The main character says that it may be covered in a layer of dust, but it is no worse than the weapons supplied to the palace and asks if that is so. Derek says that making a decision without even asking his father is a little wrongs. The young lady reminds that she is allowed to do whatever she wants. The brother asks who is forbidding her. The blacksmith says that he is interested in their proposal and asks what it is all about, and then says that, right now, he has more important business than forging. Norbert tells them not to offer him anything, but his answer will not change, and then suggests that they leave. Suddenly, a little girl came into the room and, wiping her eyes, turned to her dad. He came up to his daughter and asked why she had gone out and told her to come back quickly. However, the girl coughed up red liquid and then fell to the floor. The sword turns to the little sister and says that he senses a huge amount of divine powers in this child. Derek asks the blacksmith if this is his business. He says it is, and then says that even if they get into it, nothing will change. The young gentleman asks if he took her to the doctor. He replies that he has visited everyone, but they just shrug their shoulders. And then he explains that he has tried all kinds of medicines and even consulted in a magic tower. Norbert says sadly that he has done all he could with words. The young lady asks what about the temples. The blacksmith replies that he has forgotten about them since their doors are open only to aristocrats who make donations. Adelia asks if she helps him heal his daughter. Will he agree to work for the Duchy of Esther? Hearing this, the blacksmith was surprised, and then asked if she wanted to mock the feelings of a cornered man. However, the girl claims that it is not she who is on the brink of the abyss now, but she agrees to let him wait with the answer until his daughter gets better. The main character claims that this will definitely happen, and then offers him her hand and asks if they have agreed. The man thought for a moment and then shook the girl's hand. He explains that this is his last straw, and then says that if his daughter can at least stand up, he will do anything. At Rosehill Castle, Lady turns to Carolyn and says in surprise that these are tea leaves from the continent of Ray Archer. The lady with the blonde hair says that this is true, and as expected, Viola is well versed in teas. Viola reports that she heard that its import is prohibited, and then asks where she got it. Caroline replies that she specifically pulled it out of stock for the tea parties planned for this month. Esther will be joining the next tea party. Viola wonders if this girl is the little sister who is interfering in the relationship between her brother and her. Carolina replies that there is such a thing. The lady asks in surprise why she needs all this trouble. The lady with the blonde hair says that she doesn't think she will suit them, and then claims that Viola herself will be surprised when she sees her, and then claims that she is not at all like the rumors say. Caroline says that it is worth saying that she has changed a lot. Viola says that, then she is looking forward to tea. A friend says that her father definitely gave her a horse, but she has no interest in horse riding at all, and then asks how about a small bet with this horse on her tea party. Viola claims that it is boring to just chat and drink tea. Caroline agrees and says that on one condition, if it does not ruin the atmosphere of tea drinking, and then she claims that none of the guests should suffer. When the main character came home, her father asked her if she was picking up sick people now, and also wondered what they were doing outside. Derek offers to listen to him, and then explains that he doesn't deserve any special recognition, but his skills are definitely exceptional. Adelia pulls out the sword and says that he will understand when he sees it. The father takes the cold weapon in his hands and says that in order to impress him, this sword is too ordinary, but after examining it carefully, he says that the balance is perfect, and then explains that they still can't accept just anyone. The head of the family turns to his son and says that he knows the reason better than anyone. The main character remembered that after her father and brother died in the battle with Roshar Axidum, became a hero of the Empire, despite the lack of fencing skills of his soldiers. The girl understands that Norbert's weapon played a significant role in this, and she believes that they cannot afford to lose this talent in a fight with Axidum. Adelia turns to her father and explains that she is not asking him to hire Norbert right away. However, she does ask him to let the child see the temple. The father asks why she wants to help this girl so much. She answers that it is because when she looks at her, she sees herself in her. The Duke turns to the man and asks if he says his name is Norbert. A few minutes later, the doctor came to examine the girl. The gentleman asks Reynold what he thinks about the child's condition. The doctor explains that it is difficult for him to determine the cause, but the medications that Mr. Hiltprick used should have been enough to improve her condition. Hearing this, the main character thought that it was natural that he did not understand the reason. Divine power is incredibly rare and unpredictable. It has tremendous healing power, but it is ironic that many priests die from incurable diseases. The main character remembers that the doctor explained to her that people simply believed until now that God takes the lives of precious people and therefore did not try to treat them. And then she says that it turns out that there is a cure, and it is simple. The man says that another priest simply needs to treat her. After all, a body filled with enormous divine power will reject everything except her. Adelia asks that if the treatment is so simple, then why has this incurable disease existed for so long? The man explains that most of those affected by it were commoners, and the fact of such treatment was discovered by a commoner like him. At this time, the main character believes that interrupting the temple should help her. The Duke approaches the blacksmith and says that his daughter can stay here while she receives treatment. Then he encourages the man and says that he has been through a lot. Norbert thanked the Duke because he understood that this was his straw, which he had to hold on to with all his might. After a while, Adelia asks in surprise why, and then claims that she is also coming. Father says that if she goes to the temple, there is a high probability that they will find a sacred sword on her. The main character says that she knows this, and then claims that she also knows that they can't hide it forever, and then asks if there is a spare sword. The brother asks in surprise what she is talking about, and the father claims that she is not allowed to finish off the saints. The young lady assures that she did not intend to do so. Adelia explains that the legends say that the sacred sword can create copies of itself. Regart turns to his sister and asks if it's too easy to put it out there without warning. She says that he can read her thoughts. Sword replies that she herself asked not to do this without permission. Adelia says that it would be better if the sword was made of rare materials, like iamium or planitra. She claims that if they are not there, they might suspect something even if the swords have the same appearance. The father asks if she is talking about the fake holy sword, and then suggests that she use it. The head of the clan reports that this sword was used by his father, the previous head of the Esther clan. Regart tells his sister that this sword is amazing. The girl realizes that he made it from a dragon's fang. Father says that it may not be the equal of the sacred sword, but it has a similar aura, and then claims that if she wants to deceive the temple, it will help. The main character is a little hesitant, and the sword turns to her and says that he will do it because he thinks he can. The father turns to his daughter and says that if something goes wrong, she should just think about it as if he had passed the sword on to her as an inheritance. Adelia thanked her father for trusting her with such a valuable sword. Regart asks how she is, and also wonders if it is cool. He asks if there is still gunpowder in the powder flasks. The girl thought that her sword was great. Brother asks if she is happy. The main character claims that even the highest priests will not see the difference. Father says that she is rather arrogant. The Duke announces that everything is ready, and then says that it is time to move out. At this time, the aristocrats came to the blacksmith's house, and they did not understand why the door was closed, and they became curious about what was going on. A neighbor who lives nearby claims that he definitely saw that it was open yesterday, and some strangers came in. The neighbor says that they were making so much noise when they were breaking in, and he doesn't understand where the blacksmith could have disappeared to. And then he suggests that maybe his child died, or something like that. The man objects and says that this cannot be, because the child was in the same condition as always. And then he says that he asked about the issue and was told that she was going to be treated. The gentleman heard this and said that it was clear to him, and then said that it was a good job. He threw some coins to the man and told him to let him know when the blacksmith showed up. And like last time, the man with black hair says that treatment is impossible because there is no cure for it, and he knows it for sure. The man asks the doctor if His Majesty has coughed up red liquid all over again. He replies that he is taking longer and longer to come to his senses, and thinks that at this rate he won't last a month. The doctor says that there is only one leaf of the herb left, and there is nothing he can do. And he explains that the recipe for the potion is kept secret by royal decree, which only complicates everything. The assistant turns to Sir Seniel and says that his brother, who remained at home, sent a message that he wants to return. The doctor says that given the current situation. However, the guy interrupts him and says that his brother knows a lot about potions. Seniel says that they lack ingredients, not workers. The guy agrees with him and then says that if you remember the days of study, his brother was able to make an excellent antidote with just one leaf of Pelodiacvins. The doctor heard this and asked why he was only now talking about it. He explained that he was told to keep it a secret. The gentleman asks if he himself does not understand what is more important. The assistant explains that he simply was not interested in the position of the imperial doctor before. The doctor, screaming, says that you should have begged him if you had to, and then asks his name. He replies that it's Felson. At this point, the priest says that they come without warning and shove a child under his nose. And then he says that only a duke can allow himself to behave like that with the highest members of the clergy. The priest touches the girl's body and then says in amazement that such a young child has such a huge divine power, and he considers it a heavy burden without a doubt. The priest says that he thinks the reason for her condition lies elsewhere. Then he says that this is not the most appropriate place for discussion and suggests going into another room. His Holiness suggests that we first discuss past affairs. The Duke says they were able to locate and recover the sacred sword. Then he asks if there are smugglers operating in their temple. The priest asks in surprise if the smugglers dared to steal the sacred sword. Gortzig says that they admitted that they staged chaos to steal the sword. At this time, he thought that it looked like they did it. The main character became interested in whether he really bought it. The priest thanks them for returning the sacred sword to them, and he believes that thanks to them, the honor of the temple was restored. His priesthood says that he will take care of that child and his divine power, and she will definitely recover. The girl thought that maybe he took it as a threat. Derek reminds him that he mentioned earlier that there was something else to the child's condition. He explains that it appears that the child has also been taking poison for a long time. The young gentleman asks if the temple can neutralize this poison. The priest replies that, until they try, they won't know, and then says that if she took lethal doses for a long time, an antidote will be needed. And as soon as they determine the type of poison, they will report that an antidote is needed. The father turns to his children and then explains that he needs to talk to the priest and suggests that they go for a walk somewhere in the meantime. Theo says that he can be honest and then asks what he intends to do. The priest replies that, judging by the lady's aura, she has become the owner of the sacred sword. And then he says that he brought a fake sword here and therefore believes that he did not intend to reveal it and asks if this is true. The Lord agrees with him. The priest says that whatever happens, his lordship, but when the hero chosen by the sacred sword appears, the power of the imperial family, and the temple immediately increases. He says that fortunately, the hero this time is from the glorious Esther family, and he claims that if you use this opportunity correctly. The Duke heard this and interrupted him, asking if he looked like the emperor's faithful dog, or a duke who would give everything for the empire. The priest explains that he did not mean to say this, and therefore asks not to be angry. And he reports that while he was wandering, he had a revelation that Kronos does not intend to interfere in the affairs of Esther's family. His Holiness suggests that we do as he sees fit. Derek asks the young lady what she is thinking about so deeply. She replies that she was sent here according to their words. Adelia remembers Norbert mentioning that he tried every possible medication, and she thinks that perhaps there were some that didn't work for her or that shouldn't be mixed. Hearing this, the young gentleman agrees with the girl and says that it is quite possible, and he hopes that the problem can be solved with the help of divine power. The main character thought that it would be better to quickly find out the location of Felson to be on the safe side. The man turns to the heir of the Esther family and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Derek thought that even without looking, he always recognizes the owner of this voice and then greets His Highness Archduke Frey. The sword turns to the little sister and tells her that the man is a stinking seaweed. She thought that he might notice it and therefore suggests that he not twitch. Frey says that he thinks this is the first time they've met in a place like this. Derek agrees. His Highness says that instead of standing here, he suggests having lunch together, since we met like this. Derek apologizes and then says that he must decline, because he is busy and therefore looks forward to the next meeting. Frey reports that he thinks the young master prefers the current campaign and asks if he will introduce this lady to him. His Highness says that he feels awkward. The main character says that she is glad to meet His Highness the Archduke, and then she says that she is Adelia Esters. Rigart turns to his sister and asks if she knows that this guy can sense aura. She explains that she has sealed her entire aura in the cube, but understands that it may leak a little, but she thinks that they will probably think that it is her brother's aura. The Archduke says he has heard a lot about the young star Esther, and then she says that it is an honor to personally meet such a wonderful lady. Hearing this, the main character thought that this guy knows that the rumors about her are unflattering and thinks that he is making fun of her. And then she says that she is very pleased to hear. Adelia says that it is an honor for her to meet a hero she only knows about from rumors. The young lady knows that Axidum, who was hailed as a hero of the Empire a couple of years ago, suffered a humiliating defeat in the previous scorching snow war. And he was even captured. The one who reclaimed the lost lands and saved Axidum from imprisonment was none other than Theos Esther. And she understands that a new hero has been born. The Archduke says that he does not deserve the title of hero, and then claims that the hero of the empires is his father, Duke Esther, and no one else. Hearing this, the main character thought about what was required to be proven. Adelia tells him that his timing is perfect, and then asks if he's going to have lunch. Then she tells him that her father will be here soon, and asks if he wants to join her. His Majesty replies that he will abstain because he has already been too intrusive, and therefore he no longer dares to waste the precious time of the glorious Esther family. The girl says that for her, it is a pity because she so wanted to hear about his heroic deeds, and then says that next time he should definitely find time for them. Hearing this, the sword tells his sister that she is a good girl. She thought that in front of her father, he wouldn't even squeak, but he picks on them. The sword says that he feels good. Derek tells the blacksmith that his daughter has divine power, and the girl confirms and says that the priest said that her body is bursting with this divine power. The young lady thought it would be better not to say yet that she was poisoned. Norbert says that he didn't even know about it, and the girl suggests not to blame him for it. And then she says that the high priest said that it was a miracle that she survived at all until now. The girl claims that Diona also knows that he did everything in his power for her. And then she says that as soon as she receives treatment at the temple, she will quickly recover. The blacksmith thanked the miss, and then said that he would definitely repay her kindness. Adelia asks her brother if it is true that their father will stay in the capital for a couple of days. He answers that it is, and then says that the borders are still not calm, so he has a lot of work. Derek says that he would also be better off returning to the Knights, but he is worried that he will have to leave his sister alone. Hearing this, the main character remembered that before she calmly saw them both off to war, but now she feels a certain sense of failure because they will leave the estate. The girl asks if they will be back soon, and then says that she has something to do and therefore claims that everything is fine. The brother says that she is very businesslike. During training, a young gentleman turns to a lady and says that she is too predictable in choosing the moment of her strike. Adelia asks what else she can do. Besides direct pressure, Cliff turns to His Highness and says that he is as observant as ever. The fencing assistant says that on the battlefield, there will not always be opponents equal to him in strength. And then he says that His Highness's technique is impeccable, and so he simply suggests building up his muscles, and then he will be able to seriously advance. The main character looks at the man and asks if he is teasing her with his muscles. Now he objects and explains that he is playing along. Cliff looked at the young lady and thought of her as a little 10-year-old girl, despite her genius. However, he realized that His Majesty was right, and she was clearly worthy of the title of the youngest graduate of the Academy. The fencing assistant realizes that it is indeed difficult to train two geniuses at once. Then he says that's enough for today and claims that they have worked hard. Karsus turns to Milady and asks if she knows anything about Count Dickred's activities. Adelia replies that her family has not been in contact with him for 10 years, and therefore they know little. The young gentleman turns to his assistant and tells him to escort the lady. After training, the prince went to his father's room. When Karsus saw Dad, he turns to him and asks him to wake up. He explains that he is not yet ready to lead the empire, and their enemies know this too well. The young gentleman sits down near the bed, and then takes his father's hand and begs him not to leave him alone. After some time, the prince leaving his father's room saw the Duke. He asks if he has come to see His Majesty. The Duke says that he has come to visit His Majesty. The young gentleman says that his father is resting for now, and then asks if he would like to wait in his study, and says that he would like to discuss something. Karsus reports that the young lady told him that the Esters have not had contact with the Dickred family for a long time. Theos, surprised, asks the prince if he mentioned them to her. Then he asks how one can talk to a child about her late mother's family. The young gentleman replies that he can understand his irritation, but hopes for understanding, since he simply wants to help his family. Karsus tells the Duke that he is a friend of His Majesty, and therefore asks him to help him. At this time, the main character came home, and when she saw Sarah, she ran up to her with joy. The girl asks if she enjoyed the peace and quiet while she was gone. The maid asks what she's talking about, and then objects that it's not like that at all. She claims that anyone in the estate would say that she cried her eyes out for her. Milady asks if this is true, and then gives the maid a brooch and says that it is a gift for her. The main character explains that she bought it while she was choosing gifts for her father and brother. The maid asks in surprise if she can really accept this. Adelia says that this gift was specially chosen for her and explains that she is almost like an older sister to her. Hearing this, Sarah burst into tears and hugged her mistress. The main character says that she did not want to make her cry. The maid asks when their little miss managed to grow so much. The young lady asks how she thinks her dad and brother will like her gifts, and then explains that she doesn't even know how to present them properly. Sarah replies that it doesn't matter, and she is sure that they will be happy with any gift. Suddenly, the butler knocked on the lady's door and said that the Duke was calling her. Hearing this, the girl asked in surprise when he had time to return, and then told the maid that she would come soon. The main character entered her father's office, and seeing His Majesty asked in surprise why the crown prince had come here. The young gentleman offers her to sit down first, She agreed, and at that moment, she became interested in why they had gathered here and thought that something had happened. Father explains that he dropped in on the high priest before returning. Adelia asks if it was because of Diona. The Duke reports that he has found out what caused her illness. The girl asks what it is and what it is called, and wonders if there is an antidote and where she can get it. Dad replies that it is a poisonous herb called poldiaquin. Upon hearing this, the daughter, surprised, says that it only grows in Dickred County. The main character thought that the Crown Prince was asking about them, and she remembers that His Majesty has not been seen for a long time, and His Highness is especially sensitive to everything. As for His Majesty, young, the lady understands that the reason he joined this conversation is in half de queen. Adelia asks if His Majesty is also poisoned by this herb. The young gentleman asks in surprise how she found out about it. The lady replies that thanks to his hints, he claims that she hit the nail on the head. Cartzes explains that His Highness is suffering from polodiquin poisoning, and that a living plant is required to make an antidote. The young gentleman explains that his buying and selling has been completely stopped, and he is preserved only in places where he has no access. Hearing this, Adelia screams and suggests that they quickly go to maternity leave with her father, and then asks why they are silent, and she wonders if it is not urgent. The father explains that they cannot do this. The brother says that the lord of those lands, her grandfather, has placed a ban on Esther's line. The main character suggests that he may blame the Esters for his mother's death, and she believes that this is the worst time to cut ties. Adelia says she can go. She thinks she has the characteristic silver hair of the Dick Reds, and she thinks she should at least try. Hearing this, the Duke was surprised, and then said that this place is a full 2 days' journey away, and that's if you go straight without stopping. And then he claims that even if she takes the knights, there are too many monsters there. The girl explains that her father can't go because he'll be turned away immediately because of his hair color, and her brother could lose his job if he leaves his post, and she asks who else can besides her. The father says that he cannot let her go alone. The prince says that then he will go with the lady. Cartzes says that if his personal guard goes with them, it will be easier for him. Gerda says that it makes sense. The young gentleman objects and says that there is no time to hesitate. The Duke turns to His Highness and tells him to look after his daughter. The next day, preparations for the trip began in the mansion from early morning. Adelia asks her brother if she can ask him for a favor. She says that while she is away, let him look for the people listed for her. The young gentleman replies that it is not difficult, and then asks who they are. The little sister explains that there are talented pharmacists there, and she looked for them for Diona's sake, and then claims that even in the palace they will be useful. Derek assures the girl that he will find them. The brother asks in surprise how she even knew about them. She asks in response if she and her father are the only ones who have access to the palace. Adelia offers her brother to take the box. He asks what it is. The girl replies that this is a gift that she prepared for her brother and dad, and she explains that she thought that she would die of shame if she gave it to him personally, and therefore asks to give his gift to Dad. Derek, with tears in his eyes, thanked his sister and then hugged her. He tells the young lady to be careful on the way. Having said goodbye to her family, the main character thought that if her mother looks at her from heaven, she understands that her daughter has grown up and is ready to go on her first difficult journey. Sitting in the carriage, the sword tells the girl that he is very glad that they are going on a trip. She suggests that he be quieter because His Highness is sitting next to him. Sword objects and replies that he doesn't want to, and then claims that she always shuts him up. Rhaegar reminds him that in the estate he had to be on guard and keep quiet all the time, and he wonders why he should keep quiet in freedom. And then he says that he is tired and suggests that it would be better to melt him down right away. Adelia turns to the sword and tells it to stop vibrating because the Crown Prince is right in front of them. Hearing this, he says he forgot and then apologizes. The young gentleman looked at the girl in surprise and asked if something was bothering her. The main character assures that she is fine and then asks what could be bothering her. And then the girl pulls out the pudding and asks the king if he wants this delicacy. Cartzes asks in surprise when she managed to grab it. She explains that she did it while Dad was packing gift wines for the trip. The young lady offers His Highness to try it. He claims that he does not like it. Adelia says that her dad and brother used to say the same thing, but now they eat it with pleasure. She assures that it is simply a magical pudding that even those who hate sweets cannot resist. At this time, the young gentleman thought that he had not witnessed this food and the cooking process, and he did not understand whether he could eat it. Milady claims it's just a delicacy. He looks at her and says she's really not ordinary. The young lady asks what he means. He explains that it is a compliment and then takes out a spoon and starts to taste the dessert. The little girl asks how he is and if it is tasty, and then claims that it is incredibly tasty and asks if she is right. The young gentleman agrees with the girl, but she reminds him of what she said and then claims that she did not lie. In the evening, His Highness announces that they must leave the carriage. Adelia asks if they are going to rest before continuing their journey. Carriage asks if this is the first time she has traveled such a long distance in a carriage. She says that they are in a hurry and asks if that is not the case. Then he asks what the problem is in continuing the journey at night. The young gentleman replies that they should gather strength before going further, as he believes that the next zone is quite dangerous. Sitting near the fire, the girl thought that they probably stopped in front of the Valens Mountains. The sword reminds them that they have passed this place so many times. The girl agrees with him and thinks that they were all together with His Highness. Cartzes gives the girl a bowl of food and offers her to take it, and then asks for forgiveness in advance for serving such simple dishes to a noble lady. She assures him that there is no need to apologize for this. Adelia says that on the battlefield, it was not always possible to eat. She realized that she had said something wrong, and then screaming, she explained that something was wrong with her father, and he was telling her about it. And at that time, the main character thought that she almost said something very dangerous. Cartzes says that he understands, because he believes that her father is a war hero, and therefore she has probably heard plenty of such stories. The little girl asks His Highness why he is not eating. He replies that he is not hungry. However, she assures him that the journey will be long and he needs to eat. The young gentleman claims that she should eat more. She says that if he is naughty, he will not be able to grow tall. The guy asks in surprise if she prefers tall ones, and then he takes a bowl of food and says that then he will eat to justify her expectations. The young lady asks in surprise what her expectations have to do with it. Cartzes tells her not to betray him. The little girl claims that she is not one of those who will defect because of her appearance. The young gentleman says that if there is something there that she likes, it will be easier for her to decide. At this time, the main character thought that, in this matter, she cannot argue with him and cannot deny. However, she understands that her decision to become a bodyguard was not influenced at all by His Majesty's appearance. Late at night, a strange man reports that knights resembling personal bodyguards have been spotted in the camp. The leader of the bandits asks about the carriage. He replies that there are 2 children of aristocrats, a boy and a girl, and they are about the same age. The robber asks if they will act then. However, the captain objects and says that they are waiting for a signal. Adelia comes up behind the men and asks who they are. Hearing this, they are surprised and ask who is there, and when they saw the girl, they became curious about what kind of child this is. The robber explains that it is one of the children from the carriage. Then he asks if he should take her hostage. However, the other man asks if it would be better to kill her right away. The girl says that each has a blade and 3 knives in the sleeve. She says that judging by the stupid masks, he is Able-White. Adelia asks if she is right, because she thinks that they are not murderers, and wonders if that is true. The bandit approaches the boss and offers to kill her. However, he objects and tells them to wait, since none of them sense the child approaching. The boss claims that this is an unusual girl. Hearing this, the sword says that at least someone has finally noticed her. But suddenly, several knives flew at the main character at the same time. And she thought that this man was insightful, and then pulled out her sword and began to fight them. Adelia understands that they are not just amateurs, and she believes that she can deal with them alone, but she knows that it will be difficult without killing. Suddenly, the girl felt tired and thought that maybe she should call the knights. Suddenly, the robber grabs the girl by the hair and then screams and claims that she is messing with the wrong people, little brat. At this time, the main character thought that she had not fought with the full force of the aura for a long time, and then she began to actively fight with them. The girl first dealt with the robbers, and then grabbed their leader and put a knife to his throat and asked who hired him. Adelia kicked the man in the mouth and saw poison between his teeth. She knows it's for suicide when things don't go well. She says they don't value their lives at all when they run away like that. The boss asks the girl who she is. The young lady replies that apparently she is the one his customer disliked, and then tells him to come clean. The little girl says that she is asking nicely, but suddenly foam starts coming out of the man's mouth, and she realizes that he has bitten the poison pill. When the girl was returning from the battlefield, she saw His Highness from behind the bushes, and then screamed and asked since when he had been there. The little girl wonders if His Highness can't sleep either. He replies that he is just on his way back and suggests that they go together. The main character followed the guy, and she wondered if he saw anything. She thought that if His Highness saw her killing with Aura, he would not leave it without comment. Adelia understands that if this were the case, she would look suspicious even in her own eyes. The young lady asks about that arena. He replies that he was informed that it was closed, and therefore he believes that there should be no casualties for some time, since they probably see that he is watching them. Kartsis looked at the girl suspiciously, and then asked if it was possible that she had some hand in this. Hearing this, the main character objects, and he claims that she is clearly capable of this. She turns to His Highness and says that she hasn't won even half of the sparring matches with him, and asks how she could. The girl says that he can't sleep, and that's why all sorts of things are creeping into his head. Hearing this, he says that first about food, and now also about sleep, and asks if she's going to nag him. The main character explains that it just happened that way. The young gentleman explains that tomorrow they have a long journey ahead of them, and he has too many stupid thoughts in his head. Adelia asks if he is worried about His Majesty, and then says that on the way back he should have a good rest, and of course with half a Diakvin in his arms. Kartsis looked at the girl and said that it would be good for her to sleep too, otherwise she would remain a brat. And then he went to his tent. At this time, the sword turns to the little sister and asks if she remembers that there can be no princes. The next day, the boys and the girl were sitting on the cart, but they felt tired after that night. And on the way, they were attacked by monsters, and the main character used her ball of yarn. And after some time, they reached the mountains that were covered with snow, and these were the lands of the Decred. The main character looked at the gate and thought that she was nervous. The prince asks the little girl if she is sure that she can handle it herself. She replies that she is sure and suggests that he trust her. The guard who was standing near the main gate says that the next one can come now. Adelia says that now it's her turn, and the guard looked at the guys who were behind her and asked if they were with her. The young lady replies that these guys in the carriage are also with her. The man tells her to give her ID. The main character says that she is the one and only granddaughter of Count de Gridi. The guard asks her in surprise what she is doing. The girl asks if he can see the color of her hair, and then says that it is silver. The man asks what's wrong with Togo, and then says that if there is no ID, then there is no entry. And he says that she can turn around. The young lady suggests that he wait, but he replies that he has no time for games, and calls her baby, and suggests that she not distract him, and then tells her to go on to the next ones. Adelia screams and asks if he knows who she is, and also wonders how he is being trained here. She screams and tells him to call the boss. The guard says that he has seen all sorts of weirdos, and the girl smiles. And at that moment, she thought that she had come such a long way not to give up so easily. The young lady thought about how they could not recognize this silver shade of hair that symbolizes the Decreeds. The main character shows and says that this is her ID, the coat of arms of the Esters. The guard screams and says that these people have fake IDs, and says to arrest them. In a few minutes, the young lady was in the dungeon, and thought that things were even worse, since she was separated from her highness and the knights. Suddenly, the girl saw a gentleman through the bars, who asked if it was her. Sir Pellock asks the little girl if she is this criminal who dared to pretend to be Esther, trying to get into their territory. Adelia asks who he himself will be. He replies that he represents the interests of the Decreds. She asks if he is the lord of these lands. The gentleman replies that not quite. The main character interrupts him and says that then she has no reason to talk to him. Hearing this, Pellock screams and says that she is an uneducated brat, and asks if she even knows who he is. The gentleman informs her that Viscount Pellock is in front of her. Griffin is the eldest son of the local lord's cousin. The young lady asks if the seventh water on the jelly is obtained. Hearing this, he asks what she said. Adelia says he can contact Esther at their home and confirm her identity. He calls her baby and says it doesn't matter, and then explains that in this place his word is law. Pelach claims that if he says that the noble lady met with an accident on her way to the Earl's lands, no one will prove otherwise, and he asks if she now understands the situation. The young lady asks what the grandfather is doing, that people like him are acting arbitrarily right under his nose. The gentleman asks if she is talking about the count, and then says that he is too busy taking care of the countess, who has gone mad, clinging to the ghost of her dead daughter. Hearing this, Adelia tells him to watch his words. The man asks if she is still being cheeky, and he wonders if she can't get it. Then he claims that she is a girl locked in a dirty cage, and asks what she can do. The little girl clings to the bars with her hands, and replies that there are a lot of them, and then she makes a hole. Seeing this, the guard and the gentleman were surprised, and then screamed and said that she was a monster's. The girl asks how they dare to address a lady like that, and in a few minutes she teaches them a lesson. Date time, a woman with silver hair says that her child is very kind, and the man agrees with her and suggests to take medicine first and then look for her child together. The lady says that she needs a treasure that she must pass on to her child. The gentleman hugs the woman, and at that moment the main character comes into their room with the prince and calls them grandfather and grandmother, and then greets them. Seeing the baby, the woman hugged her and then said that she had come. She said that she knew that the girl would come, and only the gods know how long she had been waiting for her. And then she asked why it took her so long. At this time, the main character thought that the granny decided that she was her dead daughter, and then apologized for the fact that she was a little late. Grandfather says that he did not expect His Highness to personally make such a journey here. The young master replies that circumstances forced him. The gentleman turns to Adelia Esther, and at that moment, she thought about how she harbored quite a lot of resentment towards her grandfather. She thinks that her mother's death is a tragedy, but she understands that he shouldn't have turned his back on them. Adelia thought that if the relations between the two families had not deteriorated so much, then perhaps the Esthers would not have ended up in such a hopeless situation. And the little girl looked at the gentleman and did not understand why he was looking at her like that, and thought that maybe he was angry that she came without warning. Grandfather says that she has grown so much, and for a second he even thought that it was her mother Irina who had risen from the dead. And then he says that since she came herself, he thinks that it seems that her anger has subsided. Hearing this, the main character asks in surprise if it wasn't he who was angry. The gentleman asks in surprise why this is so. The little girl explains that he himself issued a decree banning Esther from appearing on his lands after her mother's death. Grandfather explains that he did order this, but it was in a fit of anger, and then he immediately revoked this decree because he does not like his son-in-law, but he would never refuse to look at his grandchildren. Adelia asks who was responsible for publicizing the order. He replies that his deputy Pelach. At this time, His Majesty's guards enter the room and apologize for being late, and they explain that the soldiers resisted. When the grandfather saw Pelach, he asked in surprise what was wrong with him. The granddaughter explains that this man locked them in a dungeon after they had come all this way to see him. The main character reports that he claimed that she was pretending to be Esther and called her an uneducated brat, and also boasted about his power in his territory and threatened to kill her. The girl says that he also spoke unflatteringly about her grandmother, and then says that he called her crazy who is clinging to the ghost of her dead daughter. Grandpa goes to this assistant and says that he is an ungrateful bastard, and then hits him in the face. Pelach wants to justify himself and says that they forced him to do it themselves. However, the gentleman screams and says that he has closed himself off. And then he says that he was wrong when he saw a soldier in him because he did not want to seem weak. Grandfather orders the soldiers to arrest Polocha. Hearing this, the assistant screams and claims that this is unfair. A few minutes later, the grandfather explains that 10 years ago, when his daughter Irina died, they were so broken that Marilda even got sick. The gentleman explains that she recognized him less and less, and constantly muttered their daughter's name under her breath, and ran away from the mansion more and more often. The maids could not hold her back, and so he had to stay by his wife's side. Adelia says that now she understands why that Pelach type ruled his territory, as if it were his own. Grandfather says he is ashamed of this, but explains that he did not know until that day. Then he turns to His Highness and asks what brought him to them. Kartzes shows the bottle that contained the leaf, The gentleman says that this unprocessed podliavan is being distributed illegally and asks where they got it from. The prince wonders if he knew that their podliaquin was secretly sold on his territory all this time, and that with its help, His Majesty was poisoned. Grandfather asks in surprise how His Highness explains that now they need podliaquin to develop an antidote. The gentleman says that he would immediately offer it to them, but now there is no harvest at all, and explains that they collect it in the middle of the year. The prince says that it is too late and asks if it is true that they have nothing left. Grandfather replies that after one theft 10 years ago, they immediately destroyed all the fruits of the harvest, and he remembers that then he still had to thoroughly investigate this case. The gentleman says that rather after this, misfortunes happened to his wife and daughter, and he was too busy. Adelia says that it is a coincidence, and it seems to her that the stolen podliaquin then went to the emperor's doctor. And after Pilak received the powers of a lord, the thefts could be repeated. The main character asks if they have a list of those who visited their lands during those times. Grandfather replies that he will find it if they give him a little time. The prince suggests that the list be forwarded to Duke Esther immediately upon finding it. The gentleman explains that the palace is too dangerous because he believes that strangers could get to these papers. Kartzer says that then he will look for another way, and then announces that it is time for him to go. Grandfather apologizes for not being able to help. Suddenly, the maid informs the count that Madame has disappeared again. Late at night, everyone went out to look for Grandma. The servant reports that he found the Countess's handkerchief, and Grandpa orders the surrounding area to be searched. At this time, the main character thought that probably this is where the podliaquin grows, and she believes that for the grass to grow so well, the soil must be extremely fertile, and believes that it will be difficult to look for traces in it. Adelia thought that considering how many fugitives she had caught on the battlefield in her time, she could not afford to lose face. The young lady understands that the knights have already combed the area, and there is a difference between the tracks left by strong adult men and a fragile elderly lady. The girl knows that her voluminous dress could have crushed the branches where she walked. Suddenly, she saw a faint trail and thought that maybe when Grandma goes to the forest, she goes to a specific place. The main character saw a cave and then went towards it and saw her grandmother. The woman turns to the baby and says that her child has arrived. Adelia asks why she came all the way here. She replies to give it to her because she heard that she was desperately looking for this treasure and therefore hid it in advance so that it would not fall into the wrong hands. Grandma shows her the box that contained the herb she was looking for, and it was unprocessed podliaquin. The woman says that now her daughter has received the treasure and asks if she will cry. Hearing this, the main character thought that she had a dream about her mother crying. The grandmother touches the girl and says that she is a poor thing who lost both her father and brother immediately after her mother died, and then asks if that is why she cried so much. The surprised girl asks what she means by that. The grandmother calls her by name and says that she is her child. And then she says that Irina never forgot to write about her. Hearing this, Adelia realized that it was not her mother. The woman touches the girl's face and says that she was scared. The main character believes that her grandmother probably saw her in her visions from the very beginning. Grandma says that it won't hurt anymore, and therefore suggests that she stop crying. After some time, the grandfather found the grandmother, and when he saw her, he hugged her, and she never left the estate again without telling anyone. The grandmother turns to the girl and says that now that she has given her the treasure, she has no more reason to leave, and then she suggests that she try hard and not forget to take her medicine. Adelia claims that she will do so in order to see her again. Grandfather apologizes for not being able to feed her properly. The granddaughter says that next time she promises to stay longer and will bring her father and brother with her. And then she takes a bottle of wine and says that it is a gift from her father. Grandfather looked at the bottle in surprise and said that it was Willand wine. The little girl said that she understood that she would not win grandfather's heart with this wine, but she hoped that it would convey his feelings to him. The gentleman claims that he is preparing his lands for a worthy welcome to Esther's family, and therefore offers to convey to his son-in-law that he is touched. Sitting in the carriage, the little girl thought that she was finally going home. The young gentleman said that it was worth at least a little rest before returning. However, the main character objects and says that making an antidote is a priority. Kartzes suggests that the girl rest since he himself will deliver half a diekvin. Adelia suggests that he wait, and then reminds him that he said that the Dikriad's palace is a dangerous place. And then she says that she knows a trustworthy pharmacist who is also a doctor. His Highness asks why he trusts this man so much. She asks if he has finally started trusting her. The prince objects and says no, then thinks for a moment and gives her his hand so she can get out of the carriage, and says that at least he doesn't see her as an enemy. The chancellor turns to his assistant and says that this has already been decided, and he wants to visit the duke and orders him to organize this meeting. The main character turns to her brother and reminds him that he said that the guest was comfortably settled in the living room. Derek claims that he was served excellent food and was even given company for a game of chess when he was bored. Adelia asks if he wants to say that he didn't lock him in. He agrees with her. The guy screams and asks where to drag the man home and make him sit in a room with guards not in prison. The pharmacist asks if they want to know how many people before them tried to get his potions this way. At this time, the main character thought that this was not how she imagined her first meeting with Felson. The guy claims that no matter what they offer, he is not going to prepare medicine for them. The young lady thinks that this is a complete failure. Adelia explains that she clearly asked to bring him not by force, and she thinks there was a misunderstanding. Derek wonders if he forced the boy to get into the carriage or cross the threshold of the mansion, and then claims that he walked on his own. Hearing this, the little girl was surprised, and her brother explained that he also ordered her to show the way as soon as he mentioned the innovative alchemical machine. Adelia asks if they have one. The guy also asks where this machine is. A few minutes later, the pharmacist looked at the equipment in surprise and said with delight that this device can even work with mana stones. The young master supports him and says that even in the imperial palace, you won't find something like this. Felson asks if they won't come into use very soon. However, he decides that it's better not to deny himself anything. The guy asks why the duchy is looking for a doctor. The lady replies that it is not the case, and then explains that the duchy already has an excellent doctor. Felson asks in surprise what they want from him then. The main character explains that they need a specific drug, in exchange for which they will sponsor his research. And so she believes that he will no longer have to rush around looking for ingredients or alchemical books. Adelia claims that the duchy will provide him with everything he needs. However, the boy says that he still does not fully understand their intentions. The girl explains that they simply encourage outstanding talents, and noble birth obliges this. At this time, the prince comes to them and asks if this is the trustworthy specialist. He says that as for him, he is rather suspicious. The duke asks his daughter why he is making things so complicated. She apologizes and then explains that she herself did not expect things to turn out this way. The father suggests that she not worry because he believes that nothing terrible has happened. Theos turns to the guy and asks if his name is Felson. He also asks if he is the best graduate of the academy. The duke says that he was offered the position of court physician, but he preferred to go abroad to study since the risk of being recruited by the enemy is quite small. Felson asks if he was spying on him. He replies that he had to, since he was supposed to be working with Ra Poldiequin. Hearing this, the guy was surprised, and the gentleman said that with such a thirst for knowledge, he was sure that the guy would benefit from such a rare opportunity, and asked if this was true. Felson claims that the opportunity is indeed rare, and then asks how he ended up in civilian hands. Kartzer says that he provided it as the crown prince, and then explains that he needs an antidote based on it. Felson asks if one dose will be enough. The prince replies that it is needed for 2. The guy asks in surprise who these unfortunate people are, and after thinking for a moment, says that it does not matter. The young man asks what their status is at the moment. Adelia replies that one loses consciousness for a long time every 2 days, and the other has already started having convulsions, and he could die at any moment. The prince says he would like to get the antidote as soon as possible. Then he asks how quickly he can do it. Felton reports that as far as he knows, it takes a week to make. However, he thinks that 2 days will be enough, and then suggests meeting the day after tomorrow morning. Lying in bed, the girl heard her father addressing her. She asks if His Highness has returned to the palace, and then says that she did not even say goodbye to him properly. Dad says that he will stay with them for now until the antidote is ready, The baby thinks that it would be better if he personally delivered the medicine to the palace. The Duke asks if she feels okay after visiting the Dicreds. She replies that she feels okay because he can see it himself. The daughter explains that, of course, she had to face monsters and sit behind bars, but she assures that it's all over and everything is fine. The father was surprised to hear this and asked how it was behind bars. And then he suggested that she not say that the count, but the girl interrupted him and then calmed him down and said that the grandfather treated her appropriately and he was glad of the wine he gave her. Adelia explained everything to her father as it was. Hearing this, the gentleman asks in surprise whether this means that his wife's father was not against the visits. The daughter explains that he did not initially impose any prohibitions on them. The father tells the girl that she has done so much and that she is great. The main character saw the brooch that she gave her dad and thought that he was wearing it, and that it suited him very well. The Duke thanks the girl for this gift, and he claims that he likes her, although he understands that she is inexpensive, and he believes that the price does not matter. Dad says that it would be better for her to go to the palace in 2 days, and so he goes to the temple himself. At this time, the little girl thought that it did not seem to her that this warm look that 10-year-old Adelia could not interpret correctly. She became interested in whether he always looked at her with such eyes. The Duke suggests that his daughter take her guards with her, and then suggests that she rest and wishes her good night. The servant tells the master that everyone is dead. He says that this is a problem because he understands that whoever their opponent was, he was very skilled. The man turns to the commander and says that time is running out because they urgently need to come up with something to tell the client, and then asks if he should go and report back to him as is. Commander Killian objects and explains that he will go himself because he believes that if he goes, he will die. The commander says that it is better not to joke with these people, and then tells his assistant to clean up the bodies and return to base. Killian sat on his horse and screamed, saying that he only hoped that this woman was not in the estate. The next day, the main character turns to His Highness and asks where he is heading so early in the morning. Kartzer replies that he wants to see the child she pulled out of the arena, and then asks if she wants to go with him. Hearing this, the main character thought that he was talking about the barracks, and then agreeing. She thought that he was not offended there because of his young age, and even hoped for it. The men surrounded the boy with red hair and said that the guests had arrived, and then asked if their child could handle it on his own. The gentleman claims that definitely not, and they will not let Barak's guests go so easily, and they think that it is worth preparing something. At this time, Adelia thought that it seemed to her that he was being bullied. The man says that the guys may not be particularly trained in etiquette, but they cook well. At this time, the girl thought that this food was delicious. Adelia turns to Barak and says she's glad he's adjusting. The man tells the miss not to worry, because the guildmaster values this young talent. And then he says that everyone has already recognized that this young boy is worth a crowd of adults, and he is too good not to take care of him. The prince says they understand and tells them to get lost. The man explains that he just wanted to encourage him. Adelia says that she had certain expectations, and then asks who would have known that he would even charm the guildmaster. Barak agrees with her, and then tells her that he is like a father to him, and that he has already gotten the hang of manipulating information little by little, because he thinks that it might be useful to him somehow. Hearing this, the main character thought that this was not good. After all, she was only going to use the head's connections with Axidum to have the necessary information, and she did not even imagine that Barak would become so close to the guildmaster. The girl understands that if Barak follows in his footsteps, he will become Axidum's subordinate. Adelia asks the guy if he needs anything, and then tells him that he can ask for whatever he wants, because she will arrange it. The guy with red hair says that there is one thing the young lady asks if it is money or people. Barak says that he wants to learn swordsmanship from her, and the main character asks in surprise how it is to study with her, and then asks if she can just assign a personal mentor. However, the guy claims that he is interested in her fencing skills. At this time, the young lady thought that this was a good way to get closer, because she believed that frequent meetings would also prevent him from going down the wrong path. Adelia agrees and explains that she has nothing much to do anyway, and will drop in periodically. He offers to take care of him and call her teacher. The next day, Felson says his back hurts because he barely had time to figure out how the equipment works. And then he goes to the window and says that they are all sure that he will not escape. The guy opens the window, but the prince and the girl address him. He then sits down on the windowsill and says that today the air is wonderful and that it refreshes him. Felson says that they are just in time and offers to take them 1 box each. The prince says he almost mistook him for a fugitive who decided to pocket the drugs, even though he signed the contract, and then claims he avoided the worst possible scenario. Hearing this, the guy objects and says that it can't be. And at that moment, he realized that the exit was guarded and considers them vile aristocrats. The girl says that if you think about it, she didn't apologize properly. And then she says that she's glad he understood everything correctly. But she still thinks that the way he was dragged here wasn't particularly polite or correct. Felson says everything is fine, and as the Duke said, he came here on his own 2 feet. And if it comes down to it, he doesn't blame anyone. Adelia thanks him for his understanding, and then welcomes him into the great ducal family. At this time, the prince is sitting by his father's bed. The Duke says that His Majesty is still unconscious, and then asks about the antidote. Kartzer replies that the antidote is excellent, and according to forecasts, he will be able to return to work in a week, but he needs to rest a little longer. Hearing this, the Duke says that it is a relief, and the young gentleman claims that he has an interesting daughter because he believes that if it were not for her, they would not have seen the antidote. Theos reminds that he also personally volunteered to accompany her. The prince explains that it was a fascinating experience for him. At this time, the main character says that they met again in the temple, and at this time, she thought that she did not even imagine that she would meet this man here again. Adelia asks Norbert if he had a good rest. The blacksmith says that he heard that the lady had traveled a long way to get the ingredients for the antidote. The main character shows him a box and says that she has medicine for Diona, and then says that she will personally deliver it and asks if he will go with her. The girl says that if they are lucky, they will even say hello to Diona if she wakes up. The young lady says that she is Adelia Esther, who greets Archduke Frey. And at that time, she thought that if she met him, then it was bad luck. Sword asks his sister what to do with the aura. She thought about suppressing it as much as possible. The girl understands that this time there is no way to wait for a distraction, and she hopes that he will leave before the aura particles leak out. The little girl says that she is glad to see him in good health. Hearing this, the Archduke smiles and thanks. The young gentleman asks her why she came to the temple without her father and brother. She replies that her friend is in this place, and then asks what brings his Archduke here. Norbert turns to the lady and says that the job is done, and then apologizes for disturbing her. At this time, the main character looked at the Archduke, and she does not understand why he has such a reaction, and assumes that he himself was trying to recruit Norbert. The young gentleman asks if the sweet, kind Lady Esther is helping a poor commoner with treatment. After all, he thought that such privileges were not thrown away. Adelia explains that the temple was not against it, and besides, this man is officially included in the staff of the duchy. She claims that it is not a matter of personal sympathy, since he will help strengthen the position of their family. The Archduke smiled and said that she was a smart young lady and should understand that bringing someone unknown into the family could have consequences. The gentleman claims that she never knows what dirty business they might be involved in. She says that, as expected, he is a true hero of his era. Adelia claims that he is right, because he understands that he never knows when and where and how something might happen. Then she says that something unexpected suddenly happens, and he loses everything he had. The girl claims that only Kronos knows the future. Suddenly, the main character saw his evil intentions, but the father stands in front of his daughter and asks what he is doing. The Duke asks if this is how Theos greets important people. Then he explains that he knows he misunderstood, but claims he did nothing. The Duke asks if he understood correctly, and then says that he does not know what his daughter did, that he even released an aura to suppress her. Theos says that he hopes that the Archduke will show mercy and forgive her. At this time, the little girl thought that this man is scary, but Daddy is great. She thinks that the pride of the Exodum is beyond measure. The main character understands that he will never admit that he lost his temper because she called him a hero of a fallen era. Frey says that he forgives the young lady Esther. The father looks at the girl and says that it seems to him that the child's weak body cannot withstand the onslaught of their auras. And then he apologizes and says that they are forced to leave them. The father turns to his daughter and says that he hopes that his appearance has not complicated the situation. Adelia turns to Norbert and asks if he is absolutely sure that it was not his fault. Then she says that she is grateful to her father that everything was resolved safely. At this time, the main character thought that apart from Axidum's sour face, they had won anyway. Dad asks the girl if she feels well, and also wonders if Duke Frey did anything bad to her. The daughter replies that she would not have kept silent if it had come to that, and she thinks that she just got nervous. She asks how Diona is. Norbert says that unfortunately, he only quietly brought medicine and flowers, and then he says that just looking at her face makes him feel better. The girl says that she is sure that next time, Diona will definitely get up herself and happily greet him. The blacksmith says that this must happen, and he is sure that it will. The next day in the Archduchy of Frey, the young lord asks if they want to say that the crown prince contributed to the closure of his arena. Frey claims that the assassination attempt failed, and now they have successfully obtained the antidote with this girl. The servant asks for forgiveness and explains that he has nothing to justify himself with. The young gentleman asks how many years of preparation were wasted. The lady asks if the girl who still had milk on her lips beat him. He says that it is not proper for a duke to throw away his aura so thoughtlessly. The woman tells him to calm down and then asks if he remembers why she told him to use Poljaquine, which is so hard to get. Then she tells him that even if Plan A fails, they will need it for Plan B. The Duke claims that even if you take the antidote, it will only neutralize the toxic component. The woman says that other parts of the polodiacvin will remain in the blood for a long time. A week later, the main character announces that she is Adelia Esther, daughter of the Duke. Esther greets the son of the Rosian Empire, and she is glad that they met again. The Emperor claims that it is all thanks to his and the prince's hard work. He asks if she expects any reward for her feat. The lady replies that she did not do it for the reward. Adelia says that as long as His Majesty acknowledges Esther's merits, that's enough for her. Hearing this, the Emperor smiled, and then turns to his friend Theos and asks what kind of education he gave his child, explaining that he is simply surprised by her words. The Duke replies that she got it from her mother. He says that he understands, because she is not even shy about giving gifts to her father. And then he says that such tenderness definitely cannot be from Theos's blood. Estera. This gentleman heard and did not understand how His Majesty even found out about his gift. The Emperor tells the lady that he thought he would rather die from affection and Esther's than from poison. He explains that he had barely arrived when Esther was already poking him in the nose with this chain and offering to look, and he was not embarrassed that he was dying. Derek turns to his father and says that this is too much. The father says that his son has raised all the royal knights on their ears by bragging about his gift. The gentleman says that he did not think that this story would reach the Emperor's ears. At this time, the girl thought that she apparently needed to spoil them with gifts more often. The sword turns to the little sister and reminds her not to forget about it either. She thought about how she would soon hang it on an elegant silver chain. The Emperor says that he wanted to grant the title for this, but the Duke himself knows that if the matter is made public, everyone will find out what poison he suffered from and who had access to it. Hearing this, the young lady thought that even such a layman in mind games as she was able to guess. The accusation will not be limited to the Decreds and the Emperor's physician. And of course, the Esthers who are closely connected with the wallpaper will also surface. The little girl understands that the gossips of the aristocratic world will not miss such a tempting prey. His Majesty says that he cannot give her lands and titles, but he can give his word. And then he says that at least one of her wishes, if it is in his power, will be granted no matter what. The Emperor saw the surprised girl and said that, judging by her eyes, it was already ripe, and asked if that was the case, and then suggested speaking. She asked if she had to speak now. His Majesty replies that at any time, while he is alive, she can collect her thoughts and return later. The girl says that then she will save this desire for some critical moment. He agrees with her. The Emperor turns to Derek and says that he mentioned that he would soon be going to the temple. He says that he still needs to rest, and therefore suggests that the guy go. At this time, the main character thought that at least the throne of Axidum would not be so easy to get now, and she hopes that everything will be fine until His Highness the Crown Prince reaches adulthood. Diona saw her father and ran up to him. He says that in just a week she has gotten better. She claims that she can even run now without getting out of breath. The blacksmith says that she suffered so much because of her stupid father. The daughter suggests that he not say that, because she knows better than anyone how desperately he fought for her life. Diona reports that His Eminence also told her that her illness was due to her divine power. She explains that he said that if she continued to train, she would become a high priest because she had enough power. The daughter says that she is afraid that this could separate them, and then says that the priests are kind, but she would like to stay with him a little longer. The father says that from now on, they will spend as much time together as she wishes. Norbert turns to the main character and then thanks her with a bow. She claims that it is nothing and then asks, "How about joining Esther's duchy?" The blacksmith claims that he will devote himself to her. The daughter asks if that means they will stay here. He answers that she said the right thing, and the girl says that she is very happy. The main character invites them to settle in and stay for a long time, as she is looking forward to their cooperation, and then they shake hands. Regard says that he is sure that any sword made by Norbert will be amazing, and then he claims that they will drink their fill of the red liquid with their knights, and asks if that is true. Regard says that serving a mistress who prefers a regular sword to a sacred one is quite a pleasure, and believes that he can break anything, be it a blade, a sword, or an axe. The main character suggests that he be patient a little longer. He says that he understands that it will take tons of time before she grows up and releases her aura. And then he asks if she really will make him hang like a pendant around her neck for another 8 years. Adelia explains that there is no other choice, because he stands out too much, and if someone who understands sacred swords recognizes him, it will cause a stir. Regard asks, what if it looks like a normal sword, but works like a sacred one? Hearing this, the girl is surprised and asks if this is possible, and also wonders why he didn't say it right away. The sword explains that for this, it is necessary to find a part of his power, hidden in the dungeons of the temple, and only then it is possible. The girl asks if he will cope with this new power with maintaining the state of transformation. He assures that she cannot worry about it. Regard explains that he is already spending a huge amount of energy to maintain it in the form of a larger, more intricate sword, and the severe will take much more energies. Adelia asks if she will be left with only a small part of his powers. She understands that the aura is still a problematic tool that needs to be honed, and believes that she has mastered the power of the sacred sword. The sword says that if you put them together, she will be even stronger than then. The girl says that it seems she will have to return to the time of being a knight. The main character thought that if this power would help protect her father and brother, she would gladly use it, and then she suggests doing this and looking for his peace. The sword supports her and suggests going forward to search. However, the little girl objects and says that she needs to sleep first. Sword asks why, in surprise. She wonders if he has forgotten that tomorrow she has a tea party that she has been waiting for so long. The lady asks if she really came. Adelia says that she personally invited her. She thanks her for accepting her invitation and assures that they will have a magical time. The main character says that she says so that she is all in anticipation. The bride says that everyone is already waiting for Adelia. Mrs. Roselle thought that, in the end, even she, who had never been to a social event, came, and she thinks that if only she herself does not screw up, then this will be a wonderful tea party. Caroline reflects that today is the day her father will acknowledge her. She remembers his conversation, that if she holds 10 successful tea parties, he will give her the opportunity to participate in the family business. Miss understands that today is the 10th final tea party, and she believes that if she successfully settles the case entrusted to her, she may even be appointed heir. After all, she believes that she is the only one who can defend the title of Marchioness of Rosehill, and she wants to do it no matter what. Adelia looked around in surprise and told the maid that now she understood what tea drinking was like. She saw pudding on the table and was surprised that it was there. Suddenly, a lady in a red dress comes up to the little girl and asks if she can find out her name. When she saw her, she thought that this woman was very beautiful. The girl says that she is Adelia. The lady says that she is glad to meet them. because she has heard a lot about them from Carolina. The woman in the red dress says she is Viola Frey of the Duchy of Frey. The little girl says she is pleased to meet you. The lady says that she hopes that they will get along. At this time, the main character thought that this is Axidum's daughter, and she sees this person for the first time and does not understand how to behave with her. The lady says that she can just call her Viola. The little girl then suggests calling her Adelia. A woman in a red dress tells a girl that she is as cute as they say she is. The main character says that she thinks this lady is much cuter. The girl thought that she didn't seem like a bad person to her and thought that she wasn't guilty of anything, and that it was all her father Axidum who was a bastard. The sword turns to its owner and suggests that she not forget that Axidum was originally a righteous war hero. She agrees with him and asks if he thinks his daughter is the same. The girl thought that Viola had become a victim of political intrigue in the past, because she knew that Axidum had used her and thrown her away. As soon as Axidum's daughter came of age, he began looking for a husband for her, and his choice fell on the prince of the allied empire, Bordier. As a result of this marriage, Axidmu gained influence not only in Rosianta, but also beyond its borders, and with the help of the prince, he seized the throne. Just a year later, Viola's corpse returned to the Rosianti Empire. The funeral was lavish, but even this farewell only served as a pretext for breaking the alliance and starting a war. Carolina approaches the girls and says that she sees that everyone is having a good time, and then Viola says that she has a little surprise for them. The woman in the red dress says that her father recently gave her this magnificent horse, and she thought that they could have a little competition. Hearing this, the ladies were surprised, and also became curious about what kind of competition this was. Viola explains that it will be a duel, and whoever can defeat 6 Freyr knights wins. The lady asks if it is fencing, and then asks if it is safe. The girl in the red dress says that only a gifted knight is worthy of such a fine horse, and asks if that is not so. Carolina explains that the fight will be conducted only with wooden swords, and therefore believes that no one will be hurt. Viola asks if anyone wants to take part. Then she turns to the gentleman in the silver uniform and asks what family he is from. The brown-haired girl raises her hand and says he is from their family. Caroline asks how they feel about participating. At this time, Juliana thought that the knight could suffer, and realized that it was somehow indecent to refuse the offer of the Archduke's daughter. The main character says that she would like to nominate a candidate from her family because she believes that her knight has not gone on campaigns for a long time, and she is interested in whether anyone there has become rusty. Viola says she is looking forward to a spectacular fight. A few minutes later, the men began to compete, and the guy in the white jacket aggressively attacks his opponent. Caroline, seeing this, suggests that they stop. However, Viola calms her down and says that the duel has already begun, and then explains that the competition should be like this because her tea party is perfect. The knight in the white jacket asks who will be next. The lady in the red dress thought that it seemed he had reached his limit, but the knights of the Freyas were tired, and therefore she thought that there was no need to worry. Viola reports that, as expected from such famous knights, their skills live up to the rumors. However, she thinks that it was too one-sided, and she didn't really enjoy the fight. And then she reports that she has a suggestion for that. The lady asks Mrs. Frey if she wants to reset the winning streak of the glorious knight of the Ester Duchy. Now she assures that, of course not, and then claims that the victory belongs entirely to the Esters. Viola says that those who did not have the opportunity to participate should not feel disadvantaged, and at this time the sword turns to the sister and says that this is a gladiator from the arena. The lady asks in surprise who it is, and then says that he has a real sword. Caroline asks Viola what it means, and then reminds her that they were only talking about wooden swords. One lady in a red dress says that it's okay, because it's just sparring, and she's sure that it will liven up their boring tea party. Viola says that she has another gift from her father, Kemal's eye, which will serve as a prize hearing. This the main character thought that it would only become clear 10 years later that it was not Kemal's eye. The little girl remembers that a knight approached her and said that he was the eldest son of the Marquis of Deltamon Buder Deltamon, and he challenges Adelia Esther to a duel. The main character asks him in surprise if last time wasn't enough. The guy explains that now he has a transcendental stone with him, And then he explains that, like the mana aura, or divine power of the one who has the transnational stone, the power will increase at least twofold or even tenfold. At this time, the girl thought that this is the stone that does not work, and that man lost the duel to her even with his vaunted stone. However, it suggests that maybe he was just weak, because the transcendental stone originally belonged to the Frey family. But then it was offered as a bribe to the Marquise. The Marquis, who supported the emperor, defected to Axidom, which ultimately led to the collapse of the imperial faction. Adelia asks if she can try him out, and at that moment she thought that she doesn't want to miss such a chance. Viola asks the little girl if it's too dangerous, and then wonders if she knows anything about fencing. Adelia explains that she planned to become a knight and therefore suggests not to look at her appearance. And then she claims that she is sure that many of those present have heard about her. The main character says that she is a noblewoman and she needs to learn what a lady is supposed to do. And she does not understand such basic things, and then asks if everyone says that, and wonders what a little girl can understand about fencing. And probably everyone thinks that she was enrolled in the Ventiola Academy. No, without the help of her family. The little girl asks to let her prove them wrong. The lady in the red dress asks her to think carefully, and then asks if she gets hurt. How will Caroline look the Duke in the eye? After all, he considers her responsible for the event. Adelia assures that it is nothing to worry about, since in such a place she cannot be hurt, and asks if the lady's opponent is an invincible knight who is also several times larger than hers. The girl claims that in this case, today, he will face his first defeat from a 10-year-old girl with a wooden sword. In a few minutes, the battle began. And while fighting with this knight, the little girl thought that he was slow. And then she says that no matter how big and sharp the sword is, it is useless if it cannot reach the enemy. The knight heard this and screamed, saying that this was nonsense. At this time, the main character became interested in why he was waving so carelessly towards the guests, and it seemed to her that he wanted to disrupt the tea party. Adelia realizes that provocation is not enough for them, and then she attacks the knight and deftly dodges, but at that time manages to hit him in the face. The knight screams and tells the girl that she is a small rat. Hearing this, she says that he got screwed today, and he will not win this competition. The girl hits the knight on the head with a wooden sword and asks him to repeat who is the little rat here. He asks her to wait, and she asks what kind of knight he is. Adelia remembers how many children asked him to stop in the arena, and then she says that he deserves a good spanking and hits him with all her might. At this time, the surprised aristocrats watched this action, and the surprised lady says that she is absolutely right, because she believes that this is real skill and not just bragging as she initially believed. The woman says that now she understands why Lady Esther was so confident. And then she turns to Miss Caroline and says that Princess Frey really did put on an incredible show because Adelia really did win. Viola sadly reports that the victory in the second match is also completely for Esther, and then reports that the Eye of Camille now belongs to Adelia, and she congratulates her. The main character thanks her and then says that she really likes this stone, and then explains that she is a little sorry that she is taking all the prizes. The little girl asks Viola if she minds if she gives something back. The lady replies that she doesn't mind, and then says that it's entirely her right. Adelia asks if she wants to make the contest easier by raffling off a horse. The lady asks what kind of contest it is, and asks if there will be sharp objects again. The main character thought that she wanted to defuse the situation, and if you think about it, she has no idea what kind of competition to entertain the lady with. Carolina suggests making bouquets. The woman asks, in surprise if she knows how to do it, and is also interested in how it will happen. The lady suggests that they pick flowers that they like first, and then put them one next to the other. The lady asks the girl why she is so good with a sword, and suggests that perhaps she was trained by the Honorable Duke Esther or his son. Adelia replies that this is partly true, but in general she has practiced a lot with His Highness, the Crown Prince. Hearing this, the lady is surprised, and asks if she seriously met the Crown Prince in person. The lady with the blonde hair asks what kind of person the prince is. The girl replies that because of the rumors, she was initially embarrassed in front of him. But after observing him, she found out that he is first of all an excellent swordsman, and he is noble as befits an aristocrat. The main character claims that the prince is insightful as a future ruler and also wise beyond his years. And most importantly, he is incredibly handsome. The woman asks why there are so many bad rumors about him then, and then says that now she also wants to meet the crown prince in person, and asks if he will show up at the upcoming debutante ball. Sarah asks the main character if she remembers fortune-telling on flowers, and then reminds her that she got a prediction that she will be close to her betrothed. However, he is not an easy person, and she will have to be careful because happiness is not guaranteed. The woman with black hair asks if it could be His Highness the Crown Prince. Hearing this, Adelia is surprised and asks what they are talking about, and then claims that it is absolutely impossible. At the end of the event, the ladies thank the hostess and say that they had a lot of fun since they had never been to such receptions before. Carolina says that she is glad that they liked it. Sarah says that she hopes that they will be invited again, and the hostess replies that they will definitely be invited. The guards turn to Mrs. Adelia and inform her that the carriage has arrived. Sword tells the mistress that it is finally over, and she agrees with him and says that it was a little different from what she expected, but still thinks it was fun. Juliana approaches the lady and thanks her for today, and then says that if it weren't for her, however, the girl interrupts her and claims that it is a given to help a lady in trouble. The girl with cinnamon hair says that she doesn't know if the lady remembers, but she had already helped her on the stairs back then. Adelia asks in surprise if she is talking about the meeting in the boutique, and then thinks that it is a coincidence that they met again. Juliana says that she was so surprised to see her. The main character says that if she had known in advance, she would have given her more time. The girl calms her down and says that it's okay, since she was busy herself. The lady with brown hair asks if she minds if she writes to her from time to time. The girl is surprised to hear this, and then assures that she will be only glad. When Olivia left, the girl asks Riga if he saw that she made a best friend at the very first tea party. He claims that best friends do not become so easy. Caroline turns to Lady Esther and thanks her, then says that she will not remain in debt. The little girl assures that she did nothing. However, the lady claims that she helped her turn a rather difficult situation into entertainment. The lady says she should have been more assertive, and she apologizes for making the little girl interfere, and then thanks her again. Sitting in the carriage, the girl thought that this truly great thing is tea drinking. The maid says that her mistress did a great job. She replies that she has a feeling as if it was she, Sarah, who was coping with something. The maid claims that nothing like that happened, and that she simply sympathized with the fact that the mistress could get hurt. Adelia asks for forgiveness and says that since everything ended well, then Sir can relax. Suddenly, the carriage stopped abruptly, and the maid hugged the lady tightly and told her to hold on. At this time, the knights tell the lady not to go outside, but to sit inside. At this time, the main character felt an aura and realized that there was someone special in the crowd. Will die anyway? The knight says that they will see about that because he thinks that they will all be caught and questioned thoroughly. The robber asks if he believes that they have a chance, and then they start fighting. When the knight was attacked, he fought with dignity, but thought that he needed to ask the lady for forgiveness for not being able to protect her. Suddenly, the main character appeared with a sword in her hands. The guard suggests that Milady return to the carriage because he thinks it is dangerous there. Adelia suggests that he retreat since he is wounded, and then says that since she is an Esther, she does not intend to hide behind the backs of loyal knights. The sword tells the sister that her strength is not yet complete, and he believes that she will not last long, and at best 10 minutes. She tells him not to worry, because she believes that 5 minutes will be enough for her. The young lady began to attack the robbers, and they asked in surprise who this girl was. Hearing this, she said that it was rude, and then she defeated them. Suddenly, the main character felt self-destruction, and she does not understand why now. The knight screaming mistress suggests her to be careful. The little girl understands that if all three explode at the same time, everything here will go up in the air, and they won't be able to leave before the self-destruction kicks in. And she thinks that there's nothing left to do but stop him personally. And then Adelia uses her aura. Father says that 2 days have passed, and he does not understand why she still does not come to herself. Derek suggests that maybe Adele used aura in this battle. The young gentleman believes that this would explain both the fact that she single-handedly defeated 7 people and the fact that she has been unconscious for 2 days. Theos understands that everything indicates that she recklessly used the aura, and this little girl was trying to protect everyone. Diona enters Adelia's room, but the knight says that she can't go in there. The little girl asks the Duke to listen to her, and then says that the thing is that the lady saved her life, and she would also like to help her somehow, and therefore actively learn to control the divine power in the temple. Diona asks to let her help the lady this time. The Duke says that even if it doesn't work out, he won't blame her and offers to try. The girl assures that she will make every effort, and then touches Adelia's chest and says some incomprehensible words. And at this time, it became very bright near the bed. After a few minutes, Adelia opened her eyes, and then asked Diona in surprise if she had really cured her. The girl says that she was not sure that she would succeed, but she is very glad that she did. The lady thanks the girl, and it seems to her that she has become even stronger than before. But she understands that she has been unconscious for a long time. Father suggests that we eat first and then discuss everything. After lunch, teacher Felson came to the girl. The lady claims that everything is past. He asks in surprise if she has any wounds left, since she covered the bomb with her body. The girl asks the teacher if he heard about it. Felson replies that he was the one who was called to treat her in the middle of the night, and then asks why she decided to do such a reckless act. Adelia explains that in that situation, she could have lost her loyal knights and maid, and therefore she decided to take the blow herself, since she is much stronger and tougher than them. Felson asked in surprise if she was stronger than them. The lady said that if she wanted to, she shouldn't believe it. He asked where it was ever seen that an aristocrat would rush into battle for the sake of a couple of subordinates. Hearing this, the main character says that she had a better opinion of him. The teacher blushed and explained that he didn't mean it that way. The girl will convince him that she is joking, and then says that she knows very well that aristocrats usually do not take common people into account, and also knows that he, the teacher, does not trust aristocrats. Adelia explains that these people almost suffered from the explosion, and they are too dear to her, and therefore she considers them simply subordinates, because they are the same as her. The lady thanked the teacher for the treatment. He assures that there is no reason to thank her. The next day, Caroline came to visit the main character. She asks the little girl how she feels, and then says that she rushed right after reading the letter. The bride asks if Esther's carriage was really attacked by robbers. Adelia assures that she is completely fine, and then thanks her for coming. The Duke bids Lady Rosehill sit down. He reports that he has sent a squad of knights to the scene of the incident, but because of the explosion, there are no traces of bodies or any clues that could help them. The knights who were at the scene of the incident also could not tell anything important. The little girl says that there were beads. Derek asks in surprise what she saw. At that time, she thought about what she saw in her past life, and then she says that it was a small black bead, and it seems to activate some time after the owner's death. Theos asks Lady Rosehill if she knows anything about this, since it was she who invited Adelia, and she was the last to see her off. The young gentleman asks his father if he suspects Caroline. He replies that he himself does not want to, but circumstances force him to. The young lady says that she has some guesses, and she believes that the attackers were the Knights of Frey. And she explains that there was simply a knight who fought with a tree in a tournament, and there is no doubt about it. Adelia suggests that maybe Viola set it all up. Hearing this, Caroline is surprised and asks why she would do something like that. After thinking for a bit, Caroline says that she doesn't think she wants her to become the heir to the Rosehill family, starting with her questionable decisions for tea parties and attempts to make her look guilty and ending with the assassination attempt on Adelia. The bride understands that Viola does not consider her her friend. The father tells his daughter that it was a very dangerous and thoughtless act, and he thinks that she should have run away from there. She agrees with him. Dad explains that he is not trying to scold her, but is simply very afraid that she could get hurt, and then he takes his daughter in his arms and says that he will take her to the room. Adelia assures that she can walk on her own. Dad says that he knows this and believes that she can walk more confidently than anyone. At this time, the main character thought that she had gone through hundreds of fights and did not consider heroism to be anything special. However, she understands that, in reality, she was scared, and she was afraid that she would not see her dad and brother again. The daughter says that she only recently realized that he loves her. 2 days later, the young lady claims she has no time for this. The maid cries out, asks why, and then says she thinks Master Derek's decision was right. Mouse asks why she was forbidden to train and leave the room. Sarah explains that this is called rest. However, the girl assures that rest is when it is pleasant. Suddenly, the maid announces that the crown prince is here. Meanwhile, in the Duchy of Freyr, the father tells his daughter that she has done wrong. She explains that Caroline planned to inherit the family business and become the head of the family, and then claims that in this case, the Rosehill property will not end up in the imperial treasury. Viola explains that she simply wanted the Rosehill family property to pass into her father's hands when he becomes emperor. Then she asks how a woman can become the leader of the family. Axidum claims that she knows very well that this is impossible in their empire, and then she says that Count Esther was here, and he gave them a warning. He said that bandits appeared in the forest, targeting the carriages of the nobility, and since their estate is quite close to the forest, he suggests that they be careful. Freyr asks the Duke if he has found the culprit. He replies that they only have the child's word as evidence, and that is not enough to catch the villains. Theos claims that he will find the culprit and make him pay for daring to encroach on the child of the Esther family, and therefore he advises them to be more careful. The father suggests that his daughter should get married sooner, before she gets too old. And at that time, he thought about the proposal from the prince of the Bordier Empire. Viola doesn't understand how she should marry someone whose face she has never seen. And then she asks her father if it is important now, because she thinks that now is the time to get rid of someone. The girl says that the emperor will die anyway, and as long as the Esther family, the main support of the imperial aristocrats, is alive, they will support the candidacy of the crown prince. Freyr asks what's wrong with Togo, because he thinks that Count Esther is a hero. The daughter says that if a hero dies in the war and asks no one, there won't be any questions. Adelia asks His Highness in surprise what brought him here. He says that she looks quite healthy. The little girl explains that she was simply being treated very diligently, and then asks if he came because he was worried about her. Karzas does not object, but says that this is so, and then says that he was told about the incident with the explosion. He says that the Freyr family and the imperial court do not get along very well. His Majesty believes that this is a well-known fact, but the forces of both sides are so great that there will be no direct conflict without any reason. And so he thought that this could be revenge for the fact that she was close to him. Hearing this, the girl smiled. He asks what's funny. Adelia asks if it means that he now believes that she is on his side. Kartzer argues that if she was put in such danger, it is logical to conclude that she is not one of them. She says that she herself did not show much respect to the Duke, and then explains that she wants to say that it is not His Highness's fault. Adelia says that he doesn't have to suffer from remorse. The prince says that he didn't think that he would be consoled, and then asks what happened between them. The girl explains that first, she took part in a knightly duel, and her opponent in the competition was the knight Freyr. Kartzer says that this means that the tournament was at the instigation of the ducal family, and then asks if she won. The lady replies that, of course, and then claims that he knows her. Norbert made armor for the knights, and then he says that it is not bad for him, and asks if it is so, milady. Derek says that this armor is light and durable, and does not restrict movement. At this time, the main character thought that the quality of the material is definitely high. The blacksmith turns to the girl and then gives her a sword, and says that this dagger was created especially for her. The girl sees this and says with delight that this is beauty. Norbert explains that he wanted to somehow repay her kindness, and then says that it is very similar to the sacred sword, and this is a mini version. At this time, Derek is sitting with his fiancée in the garden. She says that it is very beautiful here, but the young gentleman objects and says that she is exaggerating because he thinks that this place does not compare with the gardens of the Rosehill estate. Derek says that his sister went to the tea party and he thinks she enjoyed it, and then thanks the lady for helping her create a happy memory. Carolina says that she helped her a lot. The little girl approaches them, and the bride greets her and says that she has been waiting. Adelia suggests that her brother go for a walk, and then explains that they need to discuss something between them girls. The lady says that she will be the one to call him later. Adelia suggests that the bride not to miss him so much as she believes that after the wedding, they will still see each other every day. Carolina says that the baby is very straightforward. The girl says that this is her strong point, and the lady claims that she would like to be able to do the same. Carolina explains that at first, it seemed to her that they were very different and would not be able to get along, and that is why she did not want to get closer. Hearing this, the girl thought that this meant that tea drinking was good for them. The lady says that thanks to her, she was able to inherit the business because her brother, who was supposed to be the heir, died in the war, and so her father decided to pass everything on to her. And after tea, he finally recognized her. Adelia asks in surprise if she did all this to save the family business. Carolina says that the little girl can say that this is not a woman's job at all, but she understands that of course it will not be easy. However, the main character claims that this is also a great achievement, since she believes that she became the first girl to inherit the family business. The young lady says that even if she marries his brother, her family will continue to take care of her, and therefore she believes that she should give birth to at least two, one for the Esters and one for the Rosehills. Carolina says that this is not the conversation she planned to have when they met. Then she gives her a box and says that she wanted to give it to her as a token of gratitude. The little girl asks in surprise what it is. The lady replies that it is a product of their business, which she will soon take over, and then explains that they are engaged in the extraction, processing, and sale of precious stones. Adelia asks in surprise if her family really has mines where you can get atadium or planite. Lady asks how she knows this, and suggests that it is because she is a swordswoman, and she is interested in various materials. Carolina understands that atatium and planet are very rare materials, and in the entire empire, they can only be found in 3 places, and all are owned by aristocrats. The lady reports that there are no mines where atatium can be mined yet, and many are looking for it, but such a mineral is not easy to find. After all, it is a rare stone, and there is a great demand for it, also because it radiates magical power. The main Georgina reports that she is now assuming theoretically, and then asks if the owner of the Atatia mines suddenly appeared and offered their family the right of ownership. I wonder what she could give in return. Carolina asks in surprise if she means a person from another empire, and the little girl objects and says that she is from the Rosian Empire. The lady claims that there are no Atatia mines in Rosiant. The girl explains that this is why she speaks in theory. Carolina says that she is ready to give everything she has for this right. Adelia asks if this person is not ready to reveal his identity, but how will she act? She wonders if an anonymous deal is possible. She replies that it is difficult, because she understands that there is a threat of fraud and so on. However, if he wants them to keep his identity a secret, then it is still possible. The main character asks what will happen if there is a leak of information, and the name written in the contract comes out. The lady says that if it worries her, then initials will do. At this time, the young lady thought that this was great, because it meant she didn't have to worry about it. The sword asks if she was going to find a mine for her, and the girl replies that she was. The little girl thinks that if she manages to find this mine and make a deal with Carolina, then everyone will only benefit. After all, she understands that they need the most other materials for armor. Adelia understands that if they can also get a vein of planete, which only aristocrats have, they will be able to weaken Axidom Regard, tells her that she has plans for everything. The girl understands that Caroline has such a big dream, and thinks that it is probably because, in her past life, she did not achieve anything because of Viola. The sword reminds him that he said that these Freyers cannot be trusted. The young lady wrote a letter and told the maid to give it to Olivia. And at that moment, she thought that she had not even imagined that there would be so many invitations. Adelia. While going through her letters, she saw a letter from her grandfather. He wrote that she was his favorite granddaughter, and he was wondering how she was doing. And then he said that her grandfather had already missed her. Marilda asks every day when she will be able to see her again, and then says that, unfortunately, she is not yet able to travel to the capital. The little girl says that she misses them too, and then continues reading the letter again. Grandfather reports that he finally attaches a list of visitors to their domain from the period when the theft occurred, which he spoke about with His Highness Husan, the head of these arrogant magicians from the Magic Tower. After reading this, the main character became interested in why he went there a couple of days before the incident, and she thinks that if he wanted to hide the fact of work, then she does not understand why he wrote down his real name. Rigard says that almost no one knows the real names and faces of the magicians from the tower because they can easily transform. Adelia knows that she too met him in unusual circumstances. A man asks a girl where she is from because he sees she has silver hair. The young lady realizes that they first met in the middle of the war, where he acted as a backup. One day, Husin invited the girl to go with him to the tower. After all, he was interested in how long she was going to work as the king's mongrel. And then he assured her that he would treat her well. After the lady retired, they never saw each other again, and she understood that he was not just a mage from the tower, but for her he was a great partner. And she did not think that she would meet him in this life, and she has rather mixed feelings. Adelia thought that since he was on this list, she should talk to him. The main character read the next candidate on the list, and it was Count Motivan's Nilok, and he somehow wanted to become a vassal of their family. The sword claims that this means he is on their side. The young lady objects and assures that this is not so, since she believes that Nilochi is one of those who immediately turned away from them after the death of her father and brother. The girl says that they came to her a couple of days before the coming-of-age ceremony, and he said that a single girl would hardly be able to handle the controls, and then said that he had a free spot. The gentleman said that if she wanted, he would gladly take her under his wing and help wash away the shame from their family. Adelia realizes that she has another item on her list of retribution. The next day, Killian wishes them a productive training session, and then the girl and the prince began to fight with swords. The assistant tells the princess that the accuracy of her strikes has increased significantly, but he thinks that she loses the initiative too often, focusing on defense. And despite a whole week of inactivity, her skills are still at their best. And for him, this is amazing. At this time, the main character thought that she was simply reflexively used to defending herself. Killian turns to His Highness and says that he has clearly become stronger and his attacks faster, but he often repeats himself, and therefore it is easy for the opponent to predict his next move. And then he suggests that they meet at the next lesson. The main character informs His Highness that they have sent him the list he asked for. The butler informs him that Archduke Axidum wishes to meet with him. Punishment Cell asks if it is not urgent, so can it wait? And then he turns to the girl and says that he will go to him and offers her to wait in the guest room. At this time, Adelia thought that this was a sudden personal visit, and she had a bad feeling. Axidum tells the prince that they haven't seen each other for a long time because she thinks he is very busy. His Highness says he will be brief and then asks what lesson he would like to teach today. He replies that even if he wanted to teach him something, he is not ready yet.